Chapter 9:18. The Xiao family in the capital was rather famous. He had heard of them but had never come into contact with them. Wang Chuanda narrowed his eyes slightly and contemplated for a moment before asking, "Is her father Xiao Zheng from the Xiao group?" The Xiao family's reputation in the industry was quite good. It would be best if the Gaos and Xiaos were to unite through marriage. What the rich and powerful clans cared about was matching the social status of the two families. It was better than those women in showbiz. At least, she was innocent. Yes. When did you get into a relationship? Just over half a month ago. Wang Chuanda pondered for a moment, and the anger in his eyes subsided a little. Gao Nan could have a proper girlfriend, and only then did his expression soften a little. It's not that I want to nag at you, but you're not young anymore. Your mother has been nagging me about your marriage. As a man, at your age, it's time to settle down and start a family. Don't keep getting entangled with those women in showbiz. I think this girl is not bad. Find a good day and bring her home to meet your mother so that she can feel at ease. Yes. Still, isn't it a little too early to settle down and start a family? Gao Nan wanted to avoid marriage at all costs. The thought of it gave him a headache. He was still young. Why should he get married so early? Wang Chuanda reprimanded him. Early? You're almost 28 and will be 30 soon. Is it too early? You should settle down early. Your grandfather has been nagging about having a great-grandson every day. Now that you're married, he'll also settle down. Gao Nan did not want to deal with this matter further, so he brushed it off with a few perfunctory words. He thought that this was the reason why Wang Chuanda was looking for him. However, he heard Wang Chuanda say sternly, "What's going on between you and young Master Mu? He's already complained to me. Let me warn you first, young Master Mu's people, don't try to do anything funny, and don't try anything funny. Young Master Mu is not someone you can afford to offend." Gao Nan quickly understood. Did Mu Yaja say something to you? Wang Chuanda fumed. Be more respectful. Are you qualified to call him by his name? Gao Nan, on the other hand, was unconvinced. He and Mu Yaja were of the same age and generation. What was wrong with calling him by his name? Wang Chuanda seemed to have read his mind. Seeing the unconvinced look on his face, he snorted coldly and said, "Don't make such a face. It's not that I'm looking down on you, but you're also 28 years old. How can you compare to him? I don't even have the face to tell others. Look at young Master Mu. He's young and promising, and he's already a big shot in the capital. And look at you? Sigh, I don't need to scold you. If you call him young Master Mu in front of him, it's because of me. Otherwise..." Uncle. Gao Nan was speechless. How can you insult your nephew like this? I'm just warning you. From now on, you're not allowed to offend young Master Mu's people. Do you understand? Wang Chuanda's gaze was sharp and his tone was firm. Regarding this matter, he did not go overboard. His harsh words were meant to give him a strong dose of medicine. Otherwise, if he continued to let this brat go on like this, who knew what kind of trouble he would bring to himself? I know. Gao Nan's face was perfunctory, but he was not going to give in obediently. He would wait until Mu Yaja got tired of the woman he fancied before he played with her. Anyway, it was impossible for him to give in obediently. Still, he could not let Wang Chuanda know what he was thinking. Chapter 9:19. Yay! We're home. When they reached home, Yun Shusher threw her bag aside and threw herself onto the soft sofa in her high heels. She did not look like a goddess at all. Mu Yaja closed the door and walked to the sofa. Just as he sat down, Yun Shusher snuggled into his arms and hugged his waist. She buried her face deep into his warm embrace. Mu Yaja gently stroked her hair on her forehead. His slender fingers slowly twirled a lock of hair around her temples and then gently released it. He leaned against his body lazily and held the side of his head with one hand as he twirled her hair around his fingers. His jet-black hair contrasted with his fair skin. It was as if this was very interesting and he could not bear to let go. Yun Shusher seemed to be tired and let him play. In the bedroom, Yu and Xiao Yichen looked at each other in surprise when they heard the door open. Mommy is back? Yes. She must be. Thus, the two little guys opened the door and ran into the living room. However, Xiao Yichen's sharp eyes caught sight of Mu Yaja hugging Yun Shusher on the sofa. He immediately turned around and carried Yu back. Yu felt a blur in front of his eyes before he was carried back by Xiao Chen. Just as he was about to speak, Xiao Chen covered his mouth with his chubby little hand and signaled him to keep quiet. Shu, what are you doing? Daddy and Mommy are hugging each other. Xiao Chen was so excited that his face was flushed red. What? Yu's expression changed and he wanted to go to the living room. Xiao Chen immediately pulled him back. He was very strong and pulled him back in an instant. Yu looked unhappy. Mui Chen, what are you trying to do? You can't ruin Daddy's plans. Xiao Chen pouted. It's rare for me to see Daddy and Mommy making progress. You can't mess things up. Yu was speechless. Yu. Xiao Chen blinked innocently at him. Yu couldn't do anything to him. I'll just watch. I won't cause any trouble. You said it. Yu closed his eyes and sucked in a deep breath. Yes, I said it. Pinky swear. Xiao Chen was still in disbelief. She gave him the finger. Yu's patience had reached its limit. Mui Chen. Pinky promise. Xiao Chen ignored the impatience on his face and hooked his pinky. Yu pursed her lips and gave him a tug. The two little lads then tiptoed behind the wall and sneaked a peek at the sofa. Hey! Yun Shirshir looked up at him and gently poked the man's chest with her finger. Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows and glanced at her. What's wrong? Was today's class reunion boring? Mu Yaja pondered for a moment. No. Yun Shirshir's eyes widened in disbelief. I thought you would find it boring. Isn't it interesting? Your classmates are really interesting. Yun Shirshir nestled in his arms and rubbed her fingertips. She was obviously a little uneasy. She remembered that Xiao Shui had said a lot of bad things about her when she went to the bathroom. Even if it was untrue, he still heard it. He didn't ask her about it along the way, so she didn't know if he heard it. Mu Yaja saw her complicated expression and pursed lips. He didn't know what she was thinking about. He couldn't help but pinch her cheeks. What are you thinking about? I'm thinking. Yun Shirshir pondered for a moment and decided to ask about it. Chapter 9:20. She stared at his face, not wanting to miss the slightest change in his expression. Mu Yaja frowned slightly, but he did not try to hide it. Yeah. Did you say that I was kept by someone when I was in university? Yun Shirshir tried to probe further. Mu Yaja frowned slightly. Yeah. Then you. Yun Shirshir looked extremely conflicted. Suddenly she asked, do you believe it? What do you think? Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows. Clearly, he felt that her question was unnecessary. I don't think you'll believe it, Yun Shirshir said. Only someone as stupid as you would believe such a clumsy rumor, Mu Yaja said bluntly. Yun Shirshir smiled. That's right, that's right. Halfway through her sentence, she stopped abruptly. Yun Shirshir suddenly realized that he had actually attacked her intelligence. The smile on her face suddenly disappeared, and she glared at him angrily. However, when she saw that he could not hide the smile on his face, she became even angrier. She complained unhappily, Hey! You're even attacking me? Since when did I attack you? You just said that there's something wrong with my intelligence. That's the truth in front of you, stupid woman. Mu Yaja felt that her reaction was too slow. Her reaction was so slow. How am I stupid? Yun Shirshir defended herself. If I'm stupid, how could I have given birth to such a smart baby like you? Yu, who was hiding in the corner, felt extremely satisfied when he heard this. He straightened his body slightly and brushed his bangs shamelessly. Xiao Chen glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. This younger brother of his was quite shameless. Mu Yaja, who was sitting on the sofa, asked in all seriousness, Are you sure that he inherited your genes? What else could it be? If you weren't so stupid, you might be smarter, Mu Yaja said from the bottom of his heart. Yun Shirshir was deeply hurt. She wrinkled her nose in grievance and pouted her lips high. How am I stupid? How am I stupid? I'm very smart, okay? Praise me. Quick, praise me for being smart. Yun Shirshir refused to admit defeat. She started messing around in his arms, pounding his chest with her small fists. She was acting coquettishly towards him. It was rare for her to act coquettishly, but when she did, she had her ways. The man was quickly defeated. Okay, you're smart. Mu Yaja was too lazy to lower himself to this little woman's level, so he coaxed and lied to appease her. You don't really mean what you say. Looking at Yun Shirshir's tangled little face, Mu Yaja intimately rubbed the tip of her nose, then planted a kiss on the corner of her lips. His deep eyes met hers. I just like your stupidity. He just liked her clumsy appearance. She was so cute and adorable. He just couldn't get enough of her. Yun Shirshir blushed and her heart raced at his words. She held her breath for a moment and looked at his handsome face that was just inches away from her. Her heartbeat was actually disrupted by his ambiguous breath that was close to her lips. She bit her lips slightly, her snow-white teeth leaving a faint imprint on her red and tender lips. His gaze fell on her tightly bitten lips, and he couldn't help but give them a light peck. After that light peck, he couldn't hold it in anymore. He caressed her cheeks and kissed her without restraint. He gently pried open her lips and engulfed her sweetness and beauty. Xiao Yichen and Yu Yu, who were hiding in the corner, covered each other's eyes at the same time. Chapter 9:21. Xiao Yichen and Yu Yu, who were hiding in the corner, covered each other's eyes at the same time. However, the two little lads couldn't suppress their curiosity and peeked through the gaps between their fingers. They couldn't help but blush when they saw the scene in front of them. What a beautiful scene. It was even more beautiful than the kisses in idol dramas. Mu Yaja held her cheeks and gently traced the outline of her lips. Then, like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water, he gently sucked away the saliva on her lips. Yun Shirshir hooked her arms around his shoulders and responded to his kiss. The kiss was charming and gentle. Both of them were deeply immersed in the sweetness and couldn't extricate themselves. Xiao Yichen couldn't bear to watch any longer. He covered his eyes and dragged Yu Yu back to the room. Yu Yu raised his hands in protest. What are you doing? I haven't seen enough yet. Aren't you ashamed? You peeked at Daddy and Mommy kissing. Yu Yu, you're a pervert. Xiao Yichen covered his burning cheeks and accused him. Yu Yu felt that he had been shot even though he was lying down. He retorted unhappily, Mu Yichen, what do you mean by I'm a pervert? Didn't you see it too? Xiao Yichen couldn't say anything and didn't try to explain himself. He hugged Yu Yu and climbed onto the bed. Yu Yu, go to sleep. Yu Yu. However, after what had just happened, Yu Yu couldn't fall asleep at this moment. He saw the happiness on his mommy's face. For the first time in his life, he saw the undisguised happiness in her eyes. It seemed like his mommy really liked his daddy a lot. If that was the case, then he decided to protect his mommy's happiness and not allow anyone to destroy it. The temperature in the living room continued to rise. Mu Yaja lifted her skirt and wanted to use this kiss to elevate their relationship. However, at this moment, he heard a gulp. Yun Shirshir's expression froze. Mu Yaja was also stunned. Who's calling? Goo. Another sound came from Mu Yaja's stomach. It was too much of a killjoy. The originally ambiguous atmosphere was immediately destroyed. She held her breath and pressed her ear against his stomach. She raised her head and blinked. Looking at him, she couldn't help but chuckle. Hungry? Mu Yaja's gaze, however, was fixated on her smiling lips. He was hungry. No matter which aspect it was. Then I'll cook for you, okay? Yun Shirshir sat up. Mu Yaja followed her words and slowly looked down. Yun Shirshir looked at his burning gaze that kept moving downwards. Her face turned red, and she immediately knew what he was thinking. She immediately reached out to hold his face and lifted it up. Hey, don't misinterpret my words, okay? Misinterpretation. Mu Yaja's eyes were slightly puzzled, as if he did not understand. It was as if she was the one who was thinking dirty and not him. Yun Shirshir's face turned slightly red. She pursed her lips and said, I said if you're hungry, I'll cook noodles for you. Don't think too much, okay? Mu Yaja merely smiled and did not tease her further. Okay. He was really hungry. Hence, Yun Shirshir went into the kitchen to prepare. She rummaged through the cabinets and realized that there were not many ingredients left in the house. Usually, Yu Yu was very particular about the amount of food she prepared for dinner. Basically, it was just enough and there would not be any leftovers. Even if there were leftovers, they would not leave it for the next day because it was unhealthy. Hence, there was only instant noodles left in the house. Yun Shirshir raised her eyebrows. It was better than nothing. Chapter 922. She had not been in the kitchen for a long time, so it was inevitable that she was rusty. Naturally, her culinary skills could not be compared to Yu Yu's, but the taste was still palatable. When she placed the instant noodles and stir-fried vegetables on the table, Mu Yaja was hugging a pillow and closing his eyes to take a nap. She approached him quietly and saw the tiredness on his face. Although she could not bear to disturb him, she still gently woke him up. "The noodles are ready." Mu Yaja was startled awake. His gaze sharpened for a moment, and then his vision cleared up. When he saw Yun Shishir's warm smile, his gaze softened and became calm again. Yun Shishir was stunned. When he opened his eyes just now, there was a strong murderous look in his eyes. It was very scary. Mu Yaja saw the slight change in her expression and could not help but ask, "What's wrong?" "Your gaze just now, for a second. It was very scary," she said truthfully. "Did it scare you?" Yun Shishir nodded. "When I was in military training, I had to be alert at all times even when I was sleeping," Mu Yaja said. "Oh, is that so?" Yun Shishir immediately said, "The noodles are ready. Hurry up and eat. It won't taste good when it gets cold." Mu Yaja sat at the table. When he saw that the so-called noodles were actually instant noodles, his eyes were filled with disdain. "Instant noodles?" He snorted coldly. This stupid woman. She used this to brush him off? "Can't I? There's only instant noodles at home. You can suffer for a while. It's better than going hungry." Mu Yaja was still disdainful, but he was really hungry. Therefore he did not care so much. He picked up his chopsticks and started eating. He took a bite. It tasted pretty good. It was not his first time eating instant noodles. The first time he ate it, she cooked it for him. The first time she cooked it, the taste was barely satisfactory. This time, the taste seemed to have improved. "Your skills have improved." Mu Yaja blurted out a compliment that was not really a compliment. Yun Shishir was speechless. She looked at him silently, the corners of her eyes twitching. Does making instant noodles depend on one's skills? Even an idiot could do it, okay? However, she did not dare to say this. Therefore, she felt that Mu Yaja was that idiot. He definitely didn't know how to make instant noodles. Such a high and mighty man had never had to worry about food and clothing. Every bit of his life was taken care of by others. How could he step into a place like the kitchen? Mu Yaja lowered his head and ate the noodles. He ate one mouthful after another very quickly, but he didn't make a single sound. Ever since he was young, he had been bound by the rules of the nobles. He was not allowed to make a single sound at the dining table. He sat up straight, and the hand holding the chopsticks was slender and fair. Even though he was eating something as cheap as instant noodles, he still maintained the elegant demeanor of a noble. His noble aura seemed to be emitted from his bones. Yun Shishir sat opposite him and propped her head up. She watched him eat one mouthful after another. Soon, the bowl of noodles was empty. "Is there more?" Mu Yaja looked up and asked. Yun Shishir looked up and was stunned. She looked at him anxiously. "Not enough. Not enough. Not enough." She had cooked 3 packets of noodles, but it was still not enough for him. This man had an appetite that was disproportionate to his lean figure. It was a little unscientific. She went into the kitchen again and cooked 3 packets of noodles. Soon, she came out with a big bowl of noodles and placed it in front of him. Chapter 923. Mu Yaja took mouthful after mouthful of noodles and wiped them clean. Not a single strand was left. He seemed to be really hungry as he even finished all the soup. Mu Yaja put down the bowl and stared at her with his dark eyes as he raised a brow. Yun Shishir asked carefully, "Are you full?" "No. But I'm not particularly hungry," Mu Yaja replied. She sucked in a deep breath of cold air. She suddenly felt that she should get to know this man again. Why didn't she realize that he had such a big appetite before? "If you're full, then wash the dishes," Yun Shishir ordered him with a smile. Mu Yaja's eyes narrowed and he said, "I don't know how to." "If you don't know how to, I'll teach you. If that's the case, why don't you do it yourself?" Mu Yaja asked calmly. This question stumped her. Yun Shishir frowned and said, "It's already hard for me to make noodles for you." The man's eyes twitched. What was so hard about making a few bowls of noodles? Hence, he said, instant noodles should be easy to make. He glanced at her. She was clearly the one who wanted to slack off. How about this? We'll decide by rock, paper, scissors. The loser will wash the dishes. Yun Shirshir stood up and rolled up her sleeves proudly. Mu Yaja, who was sitting in his chair, nonchalantly raised the corner of his eye to look at her and readily agreed. Okay. At this moment, the atmosphere in the restaurant was strange and heavy. Yun Shirshir stared at Mu Yaja fiercely. She slowly rolled up her sleeves and raised her fist high. Rock, paper, scissors. No, let's do it again. Best of 3. You. Don't go back on your word. Yun Shirshir glared at him. Rock, paper, scissors. The air froze for a moment. Mu Yaja smiled and retracted his hand, crossing his arms elegantly. Yun Shirshir was so angry that she almost threw herself onto the table and vomited blood. What was going on? She lost again. Yun Shirshir pointed at him angrily. You cheated. You must have cheated. Mu Yaja lazily knocked on the table, but his eyes were full of smiles. Miss Yun, please pay attention to your demeanor. As the saying goes, if you agree to a bet, you must accept defeat. Yun Shirshir endured and clenched her fists. How could she just let it go when it was related to a person's dignity? She wanted to pester him for another round, but Mu Yaja ignored her. Yun Shirshir could only unwillingly carry the bowls and chopsticks into the sink. With a face full of grief and indignation, she took the steel wire ball, squeezed some detergent, and started to scrub it. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her. Following that, a pair of long arms slowly wrapped around her waist, and a warm and strong body pressed against her back. Mu Yaja then hugged her waist from behind, and his chin gently rested on her shoulder. His warm breath gently rolled around her cheeks, as if he was teasing her invisibly. Yun Shirshir was stunned, and her hands unconsciously stopped moving. She unnaturally tugged at the corner of her lips and said with a stiff smile, Hey, what are you doing? Mu Yaja didn't say anything, but reached out to hold her hands. At that moment, her hands were still stained with the foam and oil from the detergent. He held them gently, and his fingertips gently caressed them as he stared at the calluses on her hands. Her 10 fingers were very slender, and this kind of hand was born to play the piano. It was beautiful and clean, and she could easily cross an octave. Chapter 924. Yun Shirshir widened her eyes in shock. Why was this man suddenly interested in her hands? She was still washing the dishes, and her hands were covered in detergent and grease. Didn't he find it dirty? Furthermore, her hands weren't considered good-looking. Why was he staring at them? In reality, she hadn't done much housework since she was young. However, after the Yun family fell apart, she started to learn how to do housework. When she was in university, she worked part-time. She remembered that when she was in university, manicures were popular in class. Almost every girl in class would happily get their nails done during the holidays. However, she couldn't do that. She had to work part-time. If she had manicures, it would be inconvenient for her to work. At that time, the most she did was wash the dishes. She had to wash thousands of dishes a day, and her back hurt. Her hands were also soaked in grease all year round, so they were a little rough. At one point, she felt dejected. Her hands were originally fine, but they were now so ugly because of her. The more he stared at them, the more embarrassed she felt. She retracted her hands, but he held them tightly. Yun Shirshir was a little annoyed. Why do you keep staring at my hands? Mu Yaja chuckled softly all of a sudden and casually remarked, Your hands are so ugly. Yun Shirshir's face darkened instantly. She gritted her teeth and said, Mu Yaja, are my hands as ugly as you say? He smiled. But when I look at them again they look pretty good. Yun Shirshir was stunned. She thought that she was hearing things. One moment, he said that her hands were ugly. The next moment, he said that they looked pretty good. Why was this man so contradictory? Why do you have so many calluses? He suddenly asked in a deep voice. Yun Shirshir retracted her hands unwillingly and slapped his hands away. She then buried her head in washing the dishes again. Suddenly, she pretended to be relaxed and said, I used to wash dishes often. Perhaps it's because I was soaked in grease all the time. It's a part-time job. When I was forced to, I even did heavy work. Heavy work? A moving company. You even do that? It can't be helped. The salary is high, so. Yun Shirshir didn't continue. The kitchen was silent for a moment. Mu Yaja didn't say anything, but she said indifferently, someone like you who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, who didn't have to worry about food and clothing, who came from a rich and powerful family, how could you understand the lives of poor commoners like us? If you're used to eating delicacies, how would you understand that there are people in this world who would not hesitate to move bricks just to fill their stomachs? She suddenly raised her eyebrows and said, I have a classmate who works part-time to study. You, on the other hand, probably don't have to worry about this. So Mu Yaja, isn't there a world of difference between the worlds we grew up in? There was no movement behind him for a long time. His breathing was still soft and warm. In the kitchen, only the sound of water could be heard. He didn't speak for a long time. It was so long that Yun Shirshir mistakenly thought that she had said something that angered him. Suddenly she heard him say, So God let you meet me. Yun Shirshir was stunned. God loves you and thinks that you should be happy, so he let you meet me. Mu Yaja smiled. And God is a little jealous of me. He thinks that my life is too extravagant, so he let me meet you. Chapter 925. Mu Yaja continued slowly. God felt that he should dote on you, so he let you meet me. God also felt that I was living too comfortably, so he let me meet you and be annoyed by you all day long. She suddenly burst out laughing. Are you trying to coax a child? Yes, aren't you a child? Yun Shirshir's face darkened. Of course I'm not. I'm already a mother. But in my eyes, you're still just a child. Hey Mu Yaja! Yun Shirshir instantly turned her head away in dissatisfaction. Before she could finish her sentence, a fiery kiss landed on her lips. It was a soft kiss, but it was a quiet kiss. It wasn't as wild and domineering as before. She widened her eyes in astonishment and blinked in surprise. Her eyelashes brushed past his eyelids and intertwined with his eyelashes. Yun Shirshir furrowed her brows slightly. She looked up and bit her lip hard. Who kisses with their eyes so wide open? Yun Shirshir swallowed softly and pretended to be calm. My eyes are naturally big. Even if I don't open them, they'll still be big. Mu Yaja pursed his lips. So, do you have to twist the meaning of my words? Yun Shirshir pursed her lips and smiled. She smacked her lips and pretended to be generous. She smiled and said, All right then. Then I'll take it that I'm at a disadvantage. Let's do it again. Thus, she closed her eyes and pouted mischievously. She couldn't help but open her eyelids slightly, looking like she was teasing him. Mu Yaja's eyes twitched fiercely. Why was it that no matter how good the atmosphere was, it was always so easy to ruin it when it came to her? He really wanted to slap her face. Thus he flicked her forehead hatefully and said, Go wash the dishes. With that, Muya turned around with a frown. Behind him, Yun Shirshir's laughter could be heard. Haha, you're shy. Haha. He turned his head coolly to glance at her, only to see Yun Shirshir wiggling her butt and sticking her tongue out at him. Mu Yaja glared daggers at her. When he turned his face, he could no longer suppress the indulgent smile on his lips. He walked to the balcony and made a call. This call was to Du Boishiong. Just now, when Yun Shirshir was cooking noodles, he ordered someone to send him Du Boishiong's number. The phone rang for a while before it was picked up. Then, Du Boishiong's sleepy and confused voice came from the other end. Who is it? Director Du. Who are you? Du Boishiong asked in puzzlement. Mu Yaja. He introduced himself. The person on the other end was stunned for a moment before exclaiming in surprise. Oh, it's Chairman Mu. Du Boishiong instantly sobered up. At first, he was still a little skeptical. This Mu Yaja was such a distinguished big shot. Why would he take the initiative to call him in the middle of the night? He was a little flattered and smiled flatteringly. Director Mu, what made you call me personally? I'm really afraid. Yun Shirshir finished washing the dishes and walked out. Seeing Mu Yaja standing on the balcony making a call, she didn't disturb him. She went into the bathroom to take a shower and lay down comfortably on the bed. On the other side, Mu Yaja stood on the balcony, facing the night breeze, but didn't speak for a long time. On the other end of the phone, Du Boishiong was holding the phone. Seeing that he didn't speak for a long time, he went from being wild with joy at the beginning to trembling with fear at the moment. His thoughts kept changing. Chapter 926. At this moment, Mu Yaja no longer had a smile on his face. His face was cold and emotionless, but his eyes were deep and bottomless. Du Boisillon was a somewhat famous nouveau riche in this city. It was said that he had made his fortune through construction projects. His business was going smoothly and he was considered a little famous in this industry. However, not to mention the Muse, even when compared to the Songs and Gaos, the Du family was not considered a so-called prestigious family. They were just nouveau riche. To Mu Yaja, she could not be any more insignificant than this. If Mu Yaja was a mountain, then Du Boisillon was only a small sesame seed. According to his character, he would not bother to deal with such a small figure. However, it was different this time. Tonight, Huang Lili and Du Jiayan's ugly faces were really disgusting. He thought that the Du family was a prestigious family and specially ordered someone to check on Du Boisillon's background. Alas, this was the result. At the same time, he also learned that Du Boisillon had some cooperation with the Muse. Although it was called a cooperation, it was actually a cooperation between Du Boisillon and the Mu Group. Du Boisillon had contracted a few projects under the Mu Group's name. Du Boisillon placed great importance on the Mu Group's projects, but to the Mu Group, he was just a contractor that could be replaced and retendered at any time. This Du Boisillon was dispensable. Hence, in front of Du Boisillon, he personally announced that his cooperation with the Mu Group's projects was cancelled. He would be replaced and retendered. With just a few simple sentences, he obliterated all of Du Boisillon's painstaking efforts in one fell swoop. Du Boisillon anxiously asked what had happened. Mu Yaja said meaningfully, "You should ask your precious son about this matter." With that, he hung up the phone without giving him a chance. He would have sent someone to announce this matter to Du Boisillon, and it would have ended there. He personally called him to tell him about this matter as a form of respect. In addition, he also beat around the bush and asked Du Boisillon to ask his son about it. After hanging up the phone, Du Boisillon was still confused. However, he vaguely felt that his son must have caused some trouble for him again. Speaking of his son, Du Boisillon was filled with anger. It was one thing for him to indulge in debauchery and gambling, but this son of his was spoiled by his wife to the point that he was used to being rebellious. It was one thing for him to be flamboyant outside and cause trouble for him. But now they actually provoked the Mu family? Mu Yaja was someone a small family like the Du family could afford to offend. This time, Du Boisillon was infuriated. One had to know that there were two types of disasters. The first type could be solved with money. On the other hand, if you provoked a big shot, you couldn't settle it with money. A contractor like him had always looked at the faces of big shots in this circle. As long as Mu Yaja said the word, wouldn't it be a matter of minutes for him to go bankrupt? In short, Mu Yaja's phone call was like a bolt of lightning on a sunny day, making Du Boisillon restless. He sat on the bed anxiously and smoked a few cigarettes. He was really worried, so he called the company. The company had underwritten the Mu Group's real estate project and was working overnight. However, when the call came, they said that the Mu Group had cancelled their project overnight. How could this be? Chapter 927. Right now, he could not even sleep well. His mind was filled with Mu Yaja's cold voice. Thinking of that hair-raising warning, he felt even more uneasy. He hurriedly picked up the phone and called his son, who had caused so much trouble for him. As soon as the call was connected, he vented all his anger on him. "Where are you now? Come over here." On the other end, Du Jiayan was at an entertainment clubhouse. The environment was noisy. Tonight's class banquet had embarrassed him, so under Huang Lili's suggestion, he invited a group of classmates to the clubhouse to have fun. Du Jiayan, who was having a good time at the clubhouse, picked up the call a little late. The moment he picked up, he heard his father's anxious roar. Confused, he asked blankly, "Dad, what's wrong with you?" Since young, Du Boisillon had doted on him, relying on his mother's doting. Never once did he yell at him or even lay a finger on him. Now that he heard this sudden outburst of anger, he was instantly dumbfounded. Du Boisillon heard the noisy environment on the other end. This lad still had the mood to fool around outside at such a critical time. He said unhappily, "What kind of good thing did you get into for me? Get back home now. I have something to ask you." Good thing? What good thing? He hadn't done anything good recently. He had only done some harmless bad things. However, He was still in the middle of singing and had not enjoyed himself to the fullest. He was a little indignant that he had to go back now. Du Jiayan thought about it and decided to use his old trick to coax his father. Dad, can't we go later? I'm still having fun with my friends. We're only in the middle of it. Bang! He seemed to hear the sound of something heavily hitting the table. It was ear-piercing and exuded a strong murderous aura. Du Jiayan was so shocked that his breathing stopped. He did not dare to continue speaking. He knew that Du Boisxiong was angry. Very angry too. I don't care what happened. Anyway, I'm only giving you 20 minutes. Get back home now. If I don't see you in 20 minutes, I won't be polite to you. With that, he hung up the phone. Du Jiayan was dumbfounded as he held the phone. He blinked his eyes in bewilderment and hung up gloomily. Seeing this, Huang Lili asked carefully. Du Jiayan snapped. How would I know what happened? My dad told me to rush back. This was only the beginning. I'm not high yet. Huang Lili was reluctant to part with him. What's there to play? You know my dad's temper. Once he loses his temper, it's out of control. Hurry up and go back. Thus, the two of them didn't even have time to say goodbye to their friends. They rushed out of the house, hailed a taxi, and sped all the way home. Even though he did not know what was going on, he was still on tenterhooks. He had seen how Du Boisxiong looked when he was angry. It was terrifying. Now that he had to face it, he really couldn't take it. He practically sprinted all the way home. Leaving Huang Lili in the living room, he walked into the study room and opened the door. He saw Du Boisxiong pacing back and forth in front of the window with his hands behind his back, looking furious. Hearing the sound of the door opening, he turned around abruptly and swept a pair of sharp eyes at him. Chapter 928. Now that he had to face it, he really could not take it. He practically sprinted all the way into the house, leaving Huang Lili in the living room. Walking into the study, he pushed open the door and saw Du Boisxiong pacing back and forth in front of the window with his hands behind his back, looking furious. Hearing the sound of the door opening, he abruptly turned his head and swept a pair of sharp eyes at him. Du Jiayan was instantly shocked by this gaze and took a few steps back as a layer of cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He shrunk his shoulders in trepidation and stammered, "Dad, what's wrong with you? Why are you looking for me?" Du Boisxiong glanced at him again before walking to the table and sitting down. Seeing that his son seemed to be frightened out of his wits, he seemed to realize that he had lost control of his emotions. Looking at his precious son, he could not help but suppress his anger and temper. He knocked on the table and said in a low voice, "Sit down." Du Jiayan furrowed his brows and slowly sat down at the table. He sighed helplessly and asked coldly, "Jiayan, what have you done to offend someone these few days?" "Offend? Who did I offend?" Du Jiayan cocked a brow. He did not think too much of it and shook his head with certainty. "Nothing. Tell me the truth." Du Boisxiong frowned, his tone hardening. Du Jiayan felt aggrieved. "Dad, I really didn't. Do I look like the kind of person to stir up trouble? What's wrong with you? It's as if you've eaten explosives. You're denouncing me the moment I come back." Seeing his father's increasingly ashen face, Du Jiayan's voice became softer and softer. "Heh, eaten explosives? You're pushing your dad to his death," he shouted. "What did I do? I didn't do anything." "You didn't do anything? You didn't do anything, yet that person called me. How did you offend that person?" Du Jiayan was getting more and more confused. "What do you mean by that person? Who is that person?" "Dad, even if you want to blame me, you have to let me know clearly." Okay. Then, I'll let you know clearly." Du Boisxiong picked up his teacup and gulped down a few mouthfuls. He then sighed and asked with a frown, "Jiayan, how did you anger Master Mu?" "Master Mu?" Du Jiayan raised his brows strangely. His heart. However, he didn't dare to admit it. "And which Master Mu?" Du Boisxiong lowered his voice. "Dishing Financial Group CEO, Mu Yaja." "Yes, you didn't offend him, but you bullied his people. Aren't you embarrassing him?" "His people?" Du Jiayan had a bad feeling about this. Could it be that his father knew everything? "Who is it?" He asked knowingly but did not dare to say it out loud. Chapter 929. Du Jiayan was a little frightened, but facing his father's frightening gaze, he subconsciously wanted to cover up the good deed he had done out of guilt. Thus, he softly and perfunctorily said, "Dad, I really don't know any young Master Mu. I don't care what grudges you have with young Master Mu, nor what you've done to him or what he's done to you. In any case, you'd better settle this matter properly. Hurry up and apologize to him properly." Just as he finished speaking, Du Jiayan raised his voice in disbelief. "Dad, what did that young Master Mu do to you? You seem to have eaten explosives." Du Boishiong was already in a fit of anger. Seeing that his son was not giving him a way out, his anger flared up again. He was so angry that he wished he could give him a tight slap. Alas, this was his son whom he had doted on since young. His hand was raised high, and if he really wanted to slap him, he really did not know how to do it. Clenching his hand into a fist, he slammed it on the table. The table groaned in pain as if it were about to crack. Du Jiayan jumped in fright and was tongue-tied as he stood rooted to the spot. He had never seen his father treat him so fiercely. He guessed that something must have happened, so he told him everything in detail. After saying that, he observed his father's expression and carefully asked, "Dad, I really don't know his identity. If I did, would I have offended him like this? Also, what happened?" "Because you offended young Master Mu, the Mu Group's real estate company cancelled my case." Recalling Mu Yaja's cold and heartless voice, he gritted his teeth in hatred and said angrily, "Aren't you digging a grave for our whole family? Is young Master Mu someone you can afford to offend? Are you really tired of living? It's fine if you're tired of living, but are you planning to drag the whole family into the fire pit?" Du Jiayan was a little disapproving. "Isn't it just the Mu family? No matter how big the world is, can it be bigger than the emperor?" "Heh! I've really never seen the emperor before, but in the capital, the Mu family is really a well-known figure." Du Jiayan was stunned. Du Boishiong coldly glanced at her and said in a deep voice, "The Mu family's business is huge, and they have businesses all over the world." No one knew how vast the Mu Group's empire was. They only knew that the Mu family's assets were the driving force of the entire financial world and the core of the entire Asia's economy. What's even more frightening is that the Mu family's connections are very extensive. From the government to the government, there are people from the Mu family everywhere, not to mention the inextricable connections in other fields. Even in Beijing, the mayor had to give young Master Mu some face, let alone your old man. Let me tell you, whether you play in the open or in the dark, you are seeking your own death by going against Mu Yaja. You have picked the wrong opponent. You don't even know how you died. How ugly was his death?" Du Jiayan's lips twitched stiffly as he asked in disbelief, "Is it really that exaggerated, Dad?" Chapter 930. It doesn't matter who you bully, but you can't bully Master Mu. Do you understand? I still want to live for a few more years. It wasn't easy for me to climb to where I am today. Can't you give me a way out?" Du Jiayan's expression was complicated when he heard this. He opened his mouth in a daze, still somewhat doubtful. "Dad, is that Mu Yaja really that scary?" "Hee. I don't know how powerful the Mus are. I only know that if he steps on me, my entire foundation will be destroyed." Du Jiayan fell silent. After taking a shower, Mu Yaja walked to the two little lads' bedroom. When he pushed open the door, the bedroom was warm. The electric fan was blowing, and the air conditioner was not turned on. The two little lads were covered with a blanket each and were already asleep. Yu Yu's sleeping posture was considered elegant, but Xiao Yichen's sleeping posture was still as rude as usual. One of his legs was hanging on Yu Yu's body as he slept soundly. Mu Yaja walked over and saw Yu Yu frowning slightly. Even though he was asleep, his face seemed to be full of disdain. Xiao Yichen was probably too restless in his sleep, so the two lads tossed and turned for a while before falling asleep. He reached out and pinched the little lad's brows until the crease between his brows was flattened. Then, he lowered his eyes and planted a kiss on his forehead. This was something he had always wanted to do. In the past, when he was at the Mu residence, he would return home later when Xiao Yichen was already asleep. He would then go to his room and give him a goodnight kiss. Other than going on business trips, he would do it almost every day. However, Yu Yu's goodnight kiss seemed to be 7 years late. It was probably not too late, right? Mu Yaja rubbed his hair dotingly and walked to Xiao Yichen's side to kiss his forehead before leaving. After the door closed, Yu Yu opened his eyes groggily. He felt as if a tall figure had come to his window, kissed his forehead and then left. Was it Daddy? When Mu Yaja walked into the bedroom, Yun Shirshir was surprisingly awake. She leaned against the headboard with heavy eyelids. When she saw him enter the room, she immediately pulled up the blanket and covered herself tightly. He closed the door. Not asleep yet? Yun Shirshir nodded absent-mindedly. I'm waiting for you. Mu Yaja was stunned for a moment before his lips curled into a faint smile as warmth filled his heart. On the other side, he calmly took off his pajamas and said in a deep voice, If you're tired in the future, you can sleep first. You don't have to wait for me. After taking off his pajamas, his muscular body was exposed to the air. His chiseled chest, well-defined muscles, and the perfect curve of his lower abdomen. It was so firm that there was no excess fat at all. It was comparable to a top model's body. Yun Shirshir did not care about what he said. The moment she opened the door, all she could think about was admiring his body. Her gaze was a little dazed. Mu Yaja was a shrewd person. When he saw her gaze, he knew what she was thinking. He smiled and asked, Have you seen enough? Yun Shirshir finally came back to her senses. She licked her pink lips and nodded. I've seen enough. Mu Yaja asked again, Do you want to touch it again? He was openly behaving like a hooligan. Yun Shirshir shook her head decisively and said sourly, What's so great about having a good body? Chapter 931. You're not allowed. He sat by the bed and rejected her without thinking. Yun Shirshir furrowed her brows. Why? You're already so skinny. If you lose any more weight, you'll turn into a skeleton spirit. Yun Shirshir said pitifully, I'll look better if I'm skinnier. I'll look more photogenic if I'm skinnier. So what? Hugging her made him uncomfortable. She still had to have some meat on her body. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to fill his arms. Yun Shirshir said, I feel that I've gained a little weight recently. Humph. Tell me, if I get fatter, will I become a pig? Mu Yaja said calmly, You don't have to wait until then. You're already as stupid as a pig now. That one sentence was like 1,000 arrows piercing through her heart. Yun Shirshir was very hurt. The lights in the bedroom suddenly went out. Mu Yaja covered himself with the blanket. Yun Shirshir was stunned. In the darkness, she couldn't see anything clearly. She had been losing a lot of nutrients since she was young. As a result, she had severe night blindness and was very afraid of the dark. It was also from a very young age that she stayed at home alone, facing the darkness alone. She was so afraid that she hid under the blanket. It was also because of this that she developed a bad sleeping habit. Her hands groped in the direction of Mu Yaja. Hey Mu Yaja! You! Her hand was suddenly held tightly by a warm palm. With a strong pull, she was embraced by a pair of arms into a broad chest. His faint voice came from above. I'm here. It's time to sleep. Behave yourself. Am I very restless when I sleep? Yun Shirshir said angrily. Your sleeping posture is very indecent. You're just like a koala bear. Yun Shirshir was speechless. Mu Yaja pulled her into his arms and locked his arms. He smiled and said, Go to sleep. Yun Shirshir blushed and mumbled awkwardly. She gently closed her eyes and fell asleep after a while. Mu Yaja gently stroked her hair, pursed his lips, and planted a light kiss on her forehead. The next day, Yun Shirshir woke up early. Mu Yaja was still sleeping, so she tucked him in. It was rare for him to have a day off, so she wanted him to sleep a little longer. She tiptoed to the bathroom, tidied herself up, and set off for the set. When she was about to leave, she received several missed calls from unknown numbers. She pursed her lips but did not return them. She was in a rush to get to the set, so she ignored them. After the elevator scare that day, She exposed the hotel on the internet, which immediately led to accusations from the netizens. At the same time, it also revealed that the hotel often had people stuffing flirtatious little cards, so privacy was not guaranteed and so on. The hotel was a chain of express hotels. The general manager of the hotel specially opened a Weibo account and stood up to apologize, but it still couldn't calm the anger of the netizens. What a joke. Gu Xingze and Yun Shirshir were trapped in the elevator, and the video was exposed on the internet. This caused the fans of Gu Xingze and Yun Shishir to join forces to suppress them. In short, the outcome was tragic enough. The hotel manager wanted to kneel down and beg for mercy. After a while, the commotion died down. Of course, this was all in the future. She went back to filming. After some adjustments, Yun Shishir recovered to her best state. On this day, she received a mysterious gift. It was a Mercedes-Benz nanny van. When Qin Zhou handed her the keys to the nanny van, she was surprised. "What's this?" "Guess?" She carefully looked at the Mercedes-Benz logo on the car key and was a little puzzled. "Mercedes-Benz?" "Aha," Qin Zhou said, "a nanny van." Chapter 932. I can't afford to give such a big gift. Then who gave it to you? Qin Zhou looked askance at her, his eyes unreadable. Yun Shishir probed carefully. Mu Yaja? Who else could it be? This isn't very appropriate. Yun Shishir felt a little guilty. In the production team, Yang Mi and Gu Xingze both had nanny vans. In the industry, a celebrity having a nanny van seemed to be a symbol of status. There was a nanny van. After filming, they could sit in the nanny van and rest. Previously, Yan Bingqing also had one. However, even though she had a nanny van, she still had to fight for Yun Shishir's resting room. However, as a newbie who had just debuted and already had her own nanny van, it was inevitable that she would be gossiped about. What are you afraid of? Who dares to gossip about you? They'll all be banned. Yun Shishir was amused by his bold attitude. Qin Zhou briefly explained the situation to her. It turned out that Mu Yaja was afraid that she would be tired from filming and would not be able to rest well, so he bought a nanny van for her. The nanny van was an RV. The car was parked in the production team's parking lot. Qin Zhou brought Yun Shishir to take a look. The nanny van was luxurious, with a bathroom, living room, TV, video, refrigerator, dressing table, and other facilities. Yun Shishir did not show it on her face, but she felt sweet inside. He was actually so considerate for her, probably because he was afraid that she would be too tired from filming. In the afternoon, Yun Shishir had just finished filming when Mu Shi looked for her, saying that someone was looking for her outside the production team. Who is it? Mu Shi shook her head. How could she know them? She only said, I don't know them. It's a man and a woman. They couldn't get into the production team, so they got someone to pass a message that they have something important to discuss with you. Coincidentally, she had just finished filming. Since someone was looking for her, it should be something important. Walking out of the set, Yun Shishir saw Du Jiayan and Huang Lili standing at the entrance from afar. When they saw her, their faces immediately lit up with flattering smiles. This smile was too flattering, too brilliant, and had the intention of currying favor with him. As soon as she saw her, Huang Lili immediately approached her and handed her a bottle of lemonade. She then rubbed her palms together. Shishir, you must be tired from filming. Have some water first. Yun Shishir lowered her head and glanced at the water in her hand. She was startled at first. This bottle of water was of a good brand, and it was especially expensive. It probably cost more than 10 yuan per bottle. He was obviously trying to please her. But if he ignored her, he would be hiding evil intentions, wouldn't he? Thus, without even looking at it, she casually threw it into the trash can and said calmly, Sorry, I'm afraid it's poisonous. The smile on Huang Lili's face froze, but she didn't say anything. She just said, Look at you. What are you talking about? How could there be poison in the water? Shishir, you really like to joke. How did you find this place? Yun Shishir's face was a little wary. Ever since the class reunion, she had received many messages from her classmates. Out of courtesy, she had also added them to the WeChat group. The WeChat group had already kicked Huang Lili out. As for what happened that day, everyone had a tacit understanding and didn't mention a word about it. They were also overly enthusiastic toward her. It's probably what happened that day. Yun Shishir guessed. Chapter 933. Yun Shishir was on high alert. What are you guys doing? Is there something you can't say here? She felt that these two were up to no good. Du Jiayan in particular had previously been condescending toward her, but now, he was extremely enthusiastic. His fawning face in particular made her even more vigilant. Don't worry. We don't have any other intentions. Don't think too much. Huang Lili said softly. Actually, it's because something happened at home. You should know. I don't know. Yoon Shirshir then added, I don't think it's anything important. I still have scenes to shoot, so I'll take my leave first. With that, she turned to leave. Seeing this, Du Jian panicked and hurried forward to stop her. In a moment of desperation, he grabbed her arm. Yoon Shirshir only felt the area he touched burning, and immediately swatted his hand away. What are you doing? Don't get touchy. Sorry for the offense. Du Jian smiled obsequiously. Shirshir, I've asked around at the set. You've finished filming today. He had rushed to the set earlier and handed out a few cigarettes to the security guard at the entrance. He only dared to look for Yoon Shirshir after knowing that she had finished filming. Yoon Shirshir narrowed her eyes. Seeing them like this, it seemed that something had really happened. She thought for a moment. Since it was broad daylight and they were at the entrance of the film set, they couldn't do anything to her. Thus she said, I'm very busy. If you have something to say, don't drag it out. Then, shall we find a quiet place? Follow me. Yoon Shirshir turned around and walked toward the limousine. Huang Lili and Du Jian exchanged glances before following closely behind. However, when they saw Yoon Shirshir get into a limousine, they were both surprised and envious. What a grand limousine. This car must cost a few million yuan, right? Her heart was filled with jealousy and envy. Yoon Shirshir was no longer the same as before. People really could not be compared to each other. She looked at Du Jian beside her and then thought of Mu Yaja whom she had met that day. They were both boyfriends, so why was there such a huge difference? On second thought, Yoon Shirshir was from the entertainment industry. Rich and powerful families were particular about this. An actress like her would only be favored for a short period of time. Could it be that she could marry into a wealthy family and have a meteoric rise? The rich and powerful looked down on actors and actresses in the entertainment industry. With this thought in mind, she followed Du Jian into the RV. Yoon Shirshir poured a cup of tea for each of them. When the three of them sat down, she went straight to the point. If you have something to say, just say it. There's no need to beat around the bush. Since she had already said so, he was naturally more than happy to oblige. Hence he said, it's like this. That day, during the class reunion. You know it, too. Is there some misunderstanding? What misunderstanding? Yoon Shirshir raised her eyebrows. Anyway, no matter what the misunderstanding is, it's all in the past, isn't it? Shirshir, I didn't mean to offend you. You can say that I'm blind, or that I'm measuring the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. Isn't it all in the past? Isn't it good to let bygones be bygones? His tone was very sincere, and his face was full of reverence. Yoon Shirshir was a little confused by his words. Is there anything you can't say clearly? I really don't understand what you're saying. Chapter 934. Du Jian recounted the incident in detail. It turned out that, since that day at the class reunion, Du Jian and Huang Lili's actions had clearly offended Mu Yaja. He did not say anything because, in his eyes, small fries like Du Jian and Huang Lili were not worthy of his condemnation. Take the simplest example. If a mad dog barked at you by the roadside, would you bite it back? Just because he did not say anything did not mean that he would let it go. However, the things they had said and done had made him unhappy. Since he was unhappy, then he had to do something to make them unhappy as well. This was his character. On the surface he did not say anything, but behind his back, he could flatten the Du family's foundation with just a finger. It was unknown what methods Mu Yaja used, but after that day, the Du family's projects with the Mu group were all cancelled. The cooperation was written in black and white. This matter was considered a breach of contract by the Muse, so the Du family could bring the contract to their doorstep. However, did he dare to? With the Mu group's powerful background, they could cover the sky with one hand in the capital. Where could he go to sue? Be it in the legal world, the political world, or even the Supreme Court, there were people from the Muse. The Muse had openly breached the contract and slapped them in the face, but did Du Boishiong dare to sue? He did not even dare to let out a fart. Cancel it? So be it. He still had other projects on hand. Although the cases that he had worked with Mu Group were lucrative, since his son had offended them, Du Boishiong could only grit his teeth and swallow his pride even if he was unwilling to do so. Fine, I'll admit it. What else could he do? Go against the Muse? Alas, he did not expect things to be so simple. Mu Yaja's methods were swift and decisive. He had always been ruthless. Since he had made up his mind to do something, he would not give up until he forced the other party into a dead end. The next day, news came that the boss, who had always been on good terms with Du Boisxiong, had committed suicide by jumping off a building. Suicide by jumping off a building. Why did something like this happen at such a critical juncture? Du Boisxiong was terrified when he thought about it. He knew very well that this matter was definitely related to the Mu Group. This was not the end of it. Several projects that he had worked with had either been maliciously acquired or exposed to scandals of collusion between officials and businessmen. One of the project's legal representative, who had worked closely with the Du family, was suspected of corruption and bribery. The amount of money involved was so large that even the central government was involved in the investigation. Du Boisxiong's heart skipped a beat. In order to protect himself, he had no choice but to stop the development of the project. The unforeseen events of the past few days had caused Du Boisxiong to be unable to sleep soundly. His entire being was in a trance. Due to various problems, all the cases on hand had been interrupted. How could there be such a coincidence? Why didn't it happen earlier or later? Why did it have to happen now? It was obvious that someone was behind all of this. Was the Mu Group trying to force him into a dead end? Even if the contract was terminated, the losses caused by the stagnation of the project were in the millions every day. Millions, what kind of concept was that? In just a few days, he was heavily in debt. If this continued, the Du family would be completely finished. Chapter 935. He was well aware that the Mu family was making things difficult for him. Having been in the capital for so many years, he had accumulated some connections, but at this critical juncture, he could not use them at all. He went to seek an audience, but the other party refused to see him. What a joke! Who would dare to be related to him at this time? Did he want to be taught a lesson? Du Boisxiong was mentally and physically exhausted. Due to his exhaustion, he had a heart attack and was now lying in the hospital. Yun Shirshir glanced at him and then at Huang Lili. Both of them looked haggard. When it came to emotional parts, they were in tears. This was especially so for Du Jiayan, who had watched helplessly as the Du family's great foundation was destroyed in his hands. His father's foundation, which had been built over half of his life, was destroyed with just a few words from Mu Yaja. He blamed himself endlessly. Naturally, he was afraid and hated Yun Shirshir. At the same time, he knew how important this woman was in Mu Yaja's heart. Even if he hated her to the core, he did not dare to offend her. Yun Shirshir listened without any change in her expression, but she was also sighing in her heart. She didn't know anything about these things. However, she was also a little dazed. She did not expect that Mu Yaja could destroy the Du family with just a few words. This was too exaggerated. However, this was the truth. Yun Shirshir said in a low voice, "Actually, you're asking the wrong person, right? I can't decide the life and death of the Du family. I don't have the ability to do so. But you can definitely help us, right?" Du Jiayan looked worried. He seemed to have aged a few years overnight, with a few strands of white hair growing on his head. Huang Lili remained silent at the side. In fact, when the Du family got into trouble, she already had thoughts of retreating. Husband and wife were birds in the same forest, but when faced with a disaster, they flew away separately. Moreover, she and Du Jiayan were not married yet. With such a thing happening to the Du family, she naturally wanted to leave unscathed and find another branch. However, Du Jiayan did not know what she was thinking. He threatened that if she dared to abandon him at this critical juncture, he would kill her. Huang Lili was scared and didn't dare to do it anymore. Du Jiayan was depressed and his resentment toward Huang Lili had reached its peak. He had always been concerned about his reputation, and he loved Huang Lili very much. He used to be a playboy, but when he met Huang Lili, he wanted to settle down and start a family. But who would have thought that a class reunion would bring him such a calamity? His current mental state was already on the verge of collapse. After experiencing all these things, he suddenly became mature overnight. He also knew that he was insensible and had brought a devastating disaster to his family. Seeing Yun Shirshir biting her lips and remaining silent, he suddenly made up his mind and knelt on the ground with a plop. His actions shocked Huang Lili. She immediately felt embarrassed. She was already so down and out in front of Yun Shirshir, but he still knelt down in front of her. Where was she supposed to put her face? Chapter 936. He looked up and cried. I don't care what happens to me. If you still hate me, I'll do anything you want me to do. If you want me to do it, I'll even pay with my life. Still, I beg you, let my family off. Huang Lili felt utterly humiliated. She covered her face and did not know what to do. Yun Shirshir appeared calm on the surface, but deep down, she sympathized with him. You don't have to kneel before me. I don't hate you. Really? He looked up, still doubtful. Yun Shirshir nodded. He wasn't the one who was in the wrong. She wasn't so petty as to force him into a dead end just because of a few words. Leave some leeway in everything and leave a way out for everyone. She had always believed in this saying. If this was a punishment, then it was enough. It should end here. Then, are you willing to plead for the Du family? His eyes were misty. I'll try. Do you mean that you've forgiven me? With a sincere look on his face, he repeatedly explained. Yun Shirshir, I really know my mistake. Please forgive me, all right? All right. Quickly get up. Yun Shirshir said helplessly. Only then did he dare to get up, his face finally looking more relaxed. Seeing that Yun Shirshir was willing to relent, Huang Lili felt more at ease. Yun Shirshir suddenly said, Don't misunderstand. I'm only forgiving him, not you. That was because some mistakes could never be forgiven. Huang Lili was stunned by her words. She wanted to say something, but Yun Shirshir had already gotten up. All right. I'll think of a way. You guys can go back. With that, she alighted from the limousine. She left behind a dazed Huang Lili and Du Jiayan. Jiayan, what did she mean by that? Du Jiayan wiped his tears, glanced at her, and snorted. Don't you know what she said? When Yun Shirshir reached home, the sky was still bright. Yun Tianyu was teaching Xiao Yichen his homework when she pushed open the door to the study room. For the past few days, Xiao Yichen had been staying with Yu Yu. Although Yu Yu said that she disliked it, she did not reject it as much as before. With the two little guys together, the house was a little livelier. At least, it was not so lonely. She saw Xiao Yichen sitting in front of his desk with his exercise book spread out in front of him. He held a pen in his hand and looked like he had suffered a lot. Yu Yu stood to the side with her arms crossed. Her face was full of disdain, and from time to time, she would hit his head with a rolled-up newspaper. Stupid! You don't even know how to answer such a simple question. Sob. Xiao Yichen blinked his eyes pitifully as if he was about to cry. Yun Shirshir sighed. When Mu Yaja returned, Yun Shirshir was swinging gently on the swing in the back garden. From afar, she looked as beautiful as a painting as she sat among the Chinese roses. He walked over and hugged her from behind. Yun Shirshir looked up and saw him. She smiled. You're back. Mu Yaja kissed her forehead. When did you come back? Around 3 p.m. I ended early today. Oh, right. She giggled. Thank you for giving me the RV. I like it a lot. Mu Yaja's lips curled into a smile, but he did not say anything. He only gave her a gentle push, and the rope of the swing swayed slightly. Mu Yaja. She suddenly moved her lips and spoke. Du Jiayan looked for me today, Yun Shirshir said slowly. Chapter 937. He's looking for you? Mu Yaja furrowed his brows. Did you do those things? Yun Shirshir probed. Mu Yaja did not say anything, but he knew what she was referring to. He did not say anything, but he did not deny it either. The swing slowly came to a stop. Mu Yaja stood behind her quietly. Yun Shirshir said again, Let the Du family off. He grabbed her chin. His eyes were cold, and his voice was cold. Why? Are you feeling sorry for him? No. Why would I feel sorry for him? Yun Shirshir laughed. I just think that if it's a punishment, it's already heavy enough. You don't have to force him to a dead end, right? Mu Yaja snorted. Humph. You stupid woman, you're so kind. You're forgiving him just like that? I'm forgiving him, but I didn't say that I'm forgiving Huang Lili. I won't ask what you do to Huang Lili, but the Du family is innocent, Yun Shirshir said sincerely. Mu Yaja looked at her clear and charming eyes. He suddenly lowered his head and sealed her red lips. He pressed his lips against hers and said in a low voice, "Okay. I promise you that I'll let him off." Yun Shirshir pecked him on the lips. He said, "But I won't let that woman off." She pursed her lips but did not say anything. She would not forgive that woman either. After all, Huang Lily was really despicable. She was not generous enough to forgive someone who had hurt her so wantonly. Yu Yu had finished preparing dinner. He had specially made red braised pork for dinner tonight. However, when Yun Shirshir sat at the table, she looked at the greasy meat on the plate and smelled it. She suddenly felt disgusted. She forced herself to hold it in. Her face was already showing signs of discomfort. "Mommy, I specially made braised pork for you. It's your favorite." Yu Yu smiled gently and was very considerate. Yun Shirshir nodded. She picked up her chopsticks and picked up a piece of meat. She suppressed the nausea and put the meat into her mouth. She took a bite, and the fresh meat juice overflowed in her mouth. The nausea grew stronger. Her shoulders shuddered, and she had no choice but to spit the meat out. Yu Yu frowned. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Mommy really liked the braised pork he made. Why was she acting so weird today? Could it be that he wasn't performing well and his cooking wasn't good? Yu Yu did not believe her and took a bite. It was fresh and fragrant. It was delicious. Then why did Mommy spit the meat out? Yu Yu suddenly felt hurt. Yun Shirshir saw his hurt face and immediately said, "Yu, you cooked very well." Then Mommy doesn't seem to have much of an appetite today. Yu added, "That's right. Mommy's appetite hasn't been good recently. I don't know why, so I made braised pork to adjust her appetite." Yun Shirshir was afraid that Yu would be upset. She picked up the meat in the bowl. However, when she looked down and saw the delicious glow of the braised pork, she could not eat it no matter how delicious it was. Just thinking about it made her shiver. She covered her mouth and ran to the bathroom. She threw herself beside the toilet and retched. Mu Yaja walked to the bathroom. Seeing her in such a sorry state, his gaze changed. "What's wrong?" Yun Shirshir did not have time to reply to him. She retched again. Mu Yaja suddenly thought of something. Her symptoms seemed like she was pregnant. Yu and Xiao Yichen ran over worriedly. Seeing Yun Shirshir retching, Yu was especially nervous. His little hands tugged at the corner of his shirt. He was very worried. Chapter 938. Mommy isn't feeling well. You guys eat first. Mu Yaja waved the two little munchkins aside. Yu pouted unwillingly but still obediently returned to the dining table with Xiao Yichen. However, she had lost her appetite. After vomiting for a while, she picked up the gargle cup to rinse her mouth. Mu Yaja walked to her side. The mirror reflected the strange smile on his lips. "What's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" "Mu Yaja." Yun Shirshir pursed her lips and looked embarrassed. "I feel that something is wrong." What's wrong?" he asked in a low voice. However, Yun Shirshir did not see the happiness in his eyes. Yun Shirshir blushed. She looked up at him and asked awkwardly, "Previously when you were doing that, did you?" "Do what?" He seemed to be provoking her as his handsome face inched closer. "That." Yun Shirshir pursed her lips again. She was embarrassed and annoyed at the same time. How could this man be so evil? He was obviously teasing her. She pursed her lips and did not speak. Her face was red and embarrassed, and she looked very innocent. "Did you use any safety measures?" "No." Did you put it all inside?" "Inside?" Yun Shirshir's voice was so soft that it was almost inaudible. Mu Yaja felt that her expression was very interesting. He couldn't help but peck her cheek gently. "Are you pregnant?" "I don't know. But I don't have much of an appetite recently. Moreover, I often vomit in the morning. My period hasn't come for a long time." Her voice became softer as she spoke. Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows. His pupils dilated slightly and the corners of his lips lifted slightly. The two of them formed a stark contrast. One was happy and the other was worried. Yun Shirshir did not notice the change in Mu Yaja's expression. She continued, "If I'm pregnant, it'll be bad." Mu Yaja's lips turned cold. Yun Shirshir pushed him unhappily. "It's all your fault. Why didn't you take any precautions?" She muttered and threw herself at him. Mu Yaja frowned and asked, Why do you need to take precautions? Because I don't want to get pregnant. Yun Shirshir said matter-of-factly. You don't want to give birth? The smile on Mu Yaja's face disappeared. Her words were like a bucket of cold water poured over him. His face turned completely cold. He suddenly turned her body around and grabbed her chin. His tone was slightly unhappy and dangerous. What's wrong? You don't? This woman said that she didn't want to get pregnant, or did she not want to have his child? Yun Shirshir saw the dangerous aura in his eyes. She was a little scared, but she said, I don't want to get pregnant at this time. Besides, she already had Xiao Yichen and Yu Yu. These 2 babies were enough. Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes. He was in a good mood to have his child, but she looked very distressed. Naturally, he was unhappy. I don't care if you want to or not. His domineering attitude was obvious at this moment. Yun Shirshir pursed her lips. I might be pregnant. Mu Yaja did not allow her to say anything. He grabbed her hand and looked like he was going to walk out. Yun Shirshir struggled. She was a little shocked. She thought that he was going to do something. She was alert. What are you doing? What are you doing? Going to the hospital, he said, not allowing her to resist. Chapter 939. His arrival alerted the deputy director who was on duty. He rushed over with a group of people and waited for him at the door. Mu Yaja put his arm around Yun Shirshir's shoulder. He glanced at them and said, Give her a checkup. Remember, there's no room for mistakes. Once he gave the order, his subordinates naturally carried it out without any hesitation. After a series of tests, the doctor read the report and said, Chairman Mu, the test results are out. She's not pregnant. Not pregnant? Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows. He was obviously surprised by this result. Yun Shirshir was equally surprised. She was shocked at first, but then her heart calmed down. Mu Yaja glanced at her, the displeasure in his heart reaching its peak. Then, why have I been retching recently? What's going on? Also, my period hasn't come for a long time. The doctor replied, retching is usually caused by superficial gastritis. It's related to weak stomach qi and heat. You should pay more attention to your diet and avoid raw, cold, and spicy foods. We'll see how it goes. As for your period not coming, it's probably due to an endocrine imbalance. His tone was cautious and respectful. May I know if you've been working late? Yes. Yun Shirshir nodded. Recently, she had been working late to film and catch up with the schedule. It wasn't that filming was tiring, but sometimes she had to wait on the set even if she didn't have any scenes. If you mind, it's best to work and rest regularly. Otherwise, an endocrine imbalance will cause your period to be delayed. The doctor gave her a lot of advice again. However, Mu Yaja's expression was completely cold. On the way back, his expression was cold and he didn't say a word. Yun Shirshir couldn't help but laugh in her heart. Why? Are you disappointed that I'm not pregnant? Mu Yaja looked straight ahead. It was more than just disappointment. In short, Yun Shirshir was naturally happy that she wasn't pregnant. After the filming, there would be a long promotional period and they would need to do roadshows all over the country. She stole a glance at him. Seeing his cold expression, she felt a little helpless. That night, just as she lay on the bed, Mu Yaja's tall body covered her. Yun Shirshir was startled. She saw his handsome face close to hers. His eyes were unfathomable, but they were filled with turbulence. She retreated slightly until her back was against the headboard of the bed. However, he closed in on her step by step, like a hunter who was determined to win. Yun Shirshir pursed her lips and became even more alert. What are you doing? Mu Yaja blew a breath of air on her cheek. He was as charming as an orchid. Do what I love to do. Swish. Yun Shirshir's face immediately turned hot. It was so red that it looked like it was dripping blood. This man. How could he calmly say such words that made her blush? Mu Yaja pressed her forehead, pinched her waist with his big palm, and his thin lips outlined a charming and hopeless arc. You say, should I work harder? What's there to work for? A certain man said evilly. When the flowers bloom, they bear fruit. The flowers bloomed. In the end. Gosh, what a connotation. Yun Shirshir's face was unreasonably hot. Covering her face, she felt that this man could be really evil sometimes. I don't want to give birth anymore. Yun Shishir's face fell. I already have you and Xiao Yichen. Not enough. Chapter 940. Oh? Yun Shishir struggled, but Mu Yaja would not allow her to escape. His large palm pressed against her waist, and her entire body was pressed against his. A certain part of their bodies was pressed tightly against each other. Yun Shishir pursed her lips. Let's have another daughter. His gaze was clear, and he did not allow her to object. His thin lips pressed against hers. Yun Shishir's protest was completely drowned out by his aggressive kiss. That night, Mu Yaja was especially hard-working. Outside the door, the two little lads tiptoed and pressed their ears against the door, eavesdropping on the secret behind the door. The two of them looked at each other. One of them was puzzled, while the other was blushing and speechless. Yu. Xiao Yichen gently poked Yu's waist and whispered into his ear, "What are Daddy and Mommy doing?" Yu already had a guilty conscience. When Xiao Yichen suddenly pressed against him, he was shocked and patted his chest. Then, he gave him a disdainful slap on his face and pushed him away. This is philosophy. You don't understand. Xiao Yichen was dumbfounded. He pressed against him again. Then do you understand? Yu cleared his throat. His face was a little red as he turned around and went back to the room. Xiao Yichen followed behind him and closed the door. He smiled and asked, Yu, then, what does blooming and bearing fruit mean? I'm not telling you. Tell me. You're so smart. You should know what it means. Actually, Yu did not really understand the meaning of blooming and bearing fruit. However, in front of Xiao Yichen, he had to pretend that he knew everything. I won't tell you. Yu pursed her lips and deliberately kept her in suspense. Xiao Yichen was a little angry. She pushed him onto the bed and reached out to pinch his waist. She pinched his sensitive spots and started to attack him from both sides. Yu couldn't take it anymore. She was about to laugh out loud. Tell me. Mu Yichen. Ha. Let go of me. Xiao Yichen enjoyed the sight of Yu begging for mercy under his body with satisfaction. This was a tried and tested trick. Yu was the least ticklish. Mu Yichen. Ha. No more. It's so itchy. Ha. The commotion was so loud that it alarmed the two people in the master bedroom. Yun Shishir glanced at Mu Yaja and laughed. The two of you haven't slept yet? Don't bother about them. Mu Yaja was unhappy that her attention was on something else. He lowered his head and sealed her soft lips. Thus, the room was filled with romance. The Mu residence. Mu Wanru paced back and forth in the study. She did not dare to go out now because she knew that no matter where she went, Mu Lianjue would send people to follow her. Aaron's death the last time was undoubtedly a warning to her. After interacting with him for a while, she knew that he would not like others to go against his plans and act on their own. In this aspect, he was very similar to Mu Yaja. Her private meeting with Aaron that day had undoubtedly angered him. However, even if he had a card up his sleeve, Mu Wanru still felt uneasy. The media conference was imminent. Mu Yaja had already arranged everything. In another week's time, there would be a grand press conference to announce their marriage. However, after a psychological battle, Mu Wanru suddenly realized that this media conference might not be as simple as it seemed. What about Yun Shishir? Chapter 941. Why was Mu Lianjue still not taking action to get rid of these two scourges? Mu Wanru was, without a doubt, in a state of panic. She felt that Mu Lianjue could not be trusted completely. Just as she was feeling anxious, there was a sudden knock on the door. The sudden movement almost scared Mu Wanru out of her wits. The servant pushed the door open and was startled to see her pale face. Young madam? Are you trying to scare me to death? Mu Wanru's eyes were sharp and her tone was frosty. The servant shrunk her shoulders in fright and did not dare to breathe loudly. She did knock on the door and thought that there was no one in the study, so she came in to clean it. Get out. Yes. The servant didn't dare to show any signs of disobedience and retreated in fear. Mu Wanru walked to the window and looked at the gloomy weather outside. She secretly decided that if Mu Lianjue still did not take action, she would quickly take action to get rid of Yun Shishir and Yun Tianyu. It was getting late, but Yun Shishir was still not back. Mu Yaja had specially reminded Lin Fengtian that the filming could not be delayed so late. Usually, she would be back at 5:30 p.m. at the latest, but there was still no sign of her today. Muyaja found it strange. He called her phone, but it was switched off. It was probably out of battery. After waiting for a while, it started to rain outside. It was almost 7 p.m., but there was still no sign of her. Yu and Xiao Yichen sat at the dining table. They refused to have dinner and insisted on waiting for their mommy to return. Muyaja was a little distraught, afraid that she would meet with an accident on the way back. With the Mu Group's influence, they had many enemies. Due to the fierce competition for business interests, they had many enemies, including many gang leaders. This was also the reason why he did not want Yun Shirshir to step into the entertainment industry. Could it be that she was in danger? Muyaja could no longer sit still at the thought of this. He stood up and walked toward the door, wanting to call his assistant to settle some matters. However, just as he was about to change his clothes, the door was flung open. Yun Shirshir rushed into the bathroom with a cardboard box in her arms. Her face was full of smiles, and she looked very happy. Muyaja was fuming. Where exactly did this woman go and come back? However, when he stormed into the bathroom, he saw Yun Shirshir standing on the spot, drenched from head to toe. She carefully held a small cardboard box. Inside the box was a drenched puppy. A puppy! Why did she bring a puppy back? Yu and Xiao Yichen walked over and saw the puppy. Both of them loved small animals, especially newborn puppies. They could not resist it. Hence, they surrounded the cardboard box and stared at the puppy. Yun Shirshir looked even happier when she saw him. Her eyes lit up as she raised the cardboard box in her hands as though she was presenting a treasure. She smiled and said, "Muyaja, look, a puppy." Muyaja could not help but raise his eyebrows. "I recognize this as a puppy. Where did you get it?" Yun Shirshir giggled as she spun and jumped around with the box in her arms. "I picked it up from the roadside. Look, isn't it cute? It's so cute." As she spoke, she walked over to him with the cardboard box in her arms. Yu and Xiao Yichen followed behind her. Xiao Yichen, in particular, stood on his tiptoes to look at the puppy. Chapter 942. Yu glanced at him from the corner of his eyes and sneered, "Yes, it's so much like you." "You!" Xiao Yichen was so angry that he pouted and glared at him. The puppy was silly and didn't know what was going on. It lay there aggrievedly and didn't know how to act cute to get a good impression of it or whimper to ask for sympathy. It only looked at the man pitifully with its innocent but slightly resentful black eyes. The puppy was drenched from head to toe in the rain. Who knew how many days it had been since it last showered? It was extremely dirty. However, that pair of eyes gave him an inexplicable sense of familiarity. When he saw the woman's bright eyes again, he frowned helplessly. Yun Shirshir smiled and said, "What do you think? Isn't this puppy cute? Muyaja, let's adopt it." "No way." Muyaja rejected her without thinking. He reached out and pinched the puppy's ear with his orchid fingers. He glared at her and said, "We already have one at home. We can't afford to raise a second one." As soon as he pinched its ears, the puppy began to howl in panic. It was obvious that it had received a great shock. "We can't afford to raise it?" Yun Shirshir choked on his earth-shattering words. However, she suddenly realized that something was wrong with his words. She followed his gaze and looked at herself up and down. Only then did she realize who he was referring to when he said he already had one at home. She said angrily, "Hey, didn't we agree not to make personal attacks? If you like it, I'll take you to a famous pet store tomorrow and buy you a decent poodle." This puppy was really too dirty. Muyaja tugged at the puppy's ears again. The poor puppy felt extremely wronged after being teased like this. It whined a few times with tears in its eyes and shrank back into the box. Xiao Yichen's heart ached. He immediately took the cardboard box from Yun Shirshir's arms and looked down at the puppy lovingly. "Daddy, don't bully it." Yun Shirshir slapped his fingers away from the puppy and grumpily said, "I like this one. I don't like the others. If you don't want to raise it, I'll raise it. Anyway, I've decided." "You like this dirty puppy that much?" Muyaja raised his eyebrows at her and asked. Yun Shirshir said angrily, "What's dirty? It's just that it's not showering. After it showers, I guarantee that its snowy white body will be cleaner than yours." Oh! Muyaja's interest was piqued. Each and his eyes and his eyes. I'd like to see how you're going to wash this brown hair white. Yun Shirshir was momentarily speechless. This man was really good at picking holes in other people's words. She lowered her head and looked at the pitiful puppy. Her heart ached a little. She reached out and touched the puppy's wet fur. It wasn't that she was being kind. It was just that she had found this abandoned puppy on the side of the road when she and Han Mushi had gone to buy ice cream during their lunch break. She had only taken a glance at it and thought that this puppy was quite pitiful. She thought that there would be kind-hearted people who would pick it up in the afternoon. Thus, she went back to work at the company. Chapter 943. She ran to the side of the street again, but the puppy was still there. Perhaps it was too dirty, so no one was willing to spend the effort to take it in. Perhaps the dog had some infectious disease. Now that the standard of living was high, even if someone wanted to raise a dog, they could spend a few hundred yuan to buy one. It was better than picking one up from the roadside. Perhaps it was because the dog hadn't eaten for a day, or 2 days, or even longer, that it was so hungry that it kept barking. Its pair of dark eyes were misty with tears, and it was so pitiful that it was whimpering. This dog was still too small. The cardboard box was still quite tall, and such a small dog was trapped inside. When it saw Yun Shirshir, its 2 small paws scratched the box, but it couldn't jump out. If no one picked it up, it would probably starve to death. Yun Shirshir didn't care if the dog had some infectious disease. She complained about the dog's owner's heartless heart as she carried the box around to look for food. After feeding it some food, she thought to herself that she should let the dog go. After all, the person at home was a serious germaphobe. But it was raining heavily, and it would be wet all night. That would be really pitiful. Moreover, the dog was still so small. What if it was accidentally run over while crossing the road? When she fed the dog, its small tongue licked her fingertips. It was soft, as if it was trying to please her, and also as if it was grateful. This little guy's teeth weren't fully grown yet. She suddenly thought of herself when she was young. She had also been abandoned in the orphanage, just like the dog. No one cared about her, and she had no one to rely on. Thus, her heart began to ache. Following that, with her head bleeding and the dog in her arms, Yun Shirshir fearlessly returned with the dog in her arms. At that moment, her expression was like that of a revolutionary martyr. Anyway, I'm going to raise this dog. How about it? Anyway, I won't throw it away. It's so pitiful. If I throw it away, it will die. There was a hint of a threat in her words. Mu Yaja coldly sized up the woman and dog in front of him. When did this woman become so bold? Yun Shirshir saw that he was sizing her up, but she was not afraid. She puffed up her chest and snorted coldly to show her determination. Mu Yaja was helpless and said coolly, "It's not impossible to raise them." Before he could finish his sentence, Yun Shirshir jumped 3 feet high and cheered loudly. "Hee hee. Mu Yaja, you're the best." Mu Yaja's face immediately turned ashen. He had heard that pets carried a lot of germs. Was it possible to be so close to pets? What if he had a disease? Has this dog been vaccinated? Is your body healthy? You only know how to bring it back. Mu Yaja saw that she was about to approach him with the dog in her arms. He quickly took a few steps back without leaving a trace. His expression was not the usual kind of disdain. But there are 3 rules. Yun Shirshir nodded without thinking. Her pair of sparkling eyes were like that of a doted puppy. One had to know that a clean freak like him was willing to take in this dirty puppy. It was already a great gift. The dog in the cardboard box also poked its small head out. Its pair of black eyes stared at Mu Yaja. It blinked, feeling wronged and sad. It sized him up and tilted its head from time to time. Chapter 944. This dog was brought back by Yun Shirshir. She was also the one who said that she wanted to raise it. Naturally, the dog's daily life was left to Yun Shirshir to take care of. For the sake of hygiene, this dog had to be raised on the 2nd floor. Its nest could only be placed there and it could not take a step downstairs. Even its meals could only be eaten on the 2nd floor. Naturally, the showers and dog food were all Yun Shirshir's business. Other than that, he could not find any dog hair in the house. He could not see any dog paw prints on the 1st floor, not to mention excrement. If he saw it, he would slap it 50 times. Anyway, the rules were very simple. Under his watch, this dog could not be seen. If Yun Shirshir wanted to play with the dog, she had to go to the 2nd floor. Yun Shirshir, on the other hand, was a little unhappy. How was this a 3-point agreement? It was almost 30. She muttered under her breath. How heartless. Are you a dog's father too? Mu Yaja glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. With a noble and cold expression, he said, My genes are very normal. I can't give birth to a dog. Yun Shirshir choked again. She lowered her head, patted the dog's head and said, Come, call me Daddy. The puppy seemed to understand Yun Shirshir's words. It looked at Mu Yaja as if it understood. How could such a small puppy know how to bark? At this time, it could only whimper. Facing Mu Yaja's direction, the puppy opened its small mouth and whimpered pitifully again. Then, it ended with a big yawn. Mu Yaja was speechless. Mu Yaja, look, your son is begging you. Don't be so harsh. As it spoke, it reached out to scratch Mu Yaja's clothes. Mu Yaja remembered that the hand had touched the dog just now. Hence, he felt disgusted again. He moved far away and said coldly, Don't touch me if you don't wash your hands. Yun Shirshir said. Baby, your daddy is disgusted with us. Baby. Right, is it a male or female? Male. Are you sure it's male? I've seen it before. Yun Shirshir was still worried. She picked up the dog again and touched its penis with her fingertips. A certain man immediately said fiercely, Don't touch. Damn it, what if this dog has some kind of germs on it? Mommy, let's take it to the pet hospital for a bath and check if it's sick. Yu suggested. So after the family of 4 finished eating, they drove the dog all the way to the pet club. When they rushed over, they were just about to close the door and go home. When they saw Yun Shirshir rushing over with the dog, they hurriedly said, Hey miss, I'm sorry. Our shop is closed. Haha. Help me take a bath. While you're at it, you can also get a vaccine or something. Yun Shirshir said with a smile. The shop owner was dumbfounded. He had to come here to take a bath? He didn't know if such a small dog could take a bath. Besides, couldn't the vaccine be done tomorrow? Moreover, this dog was so small and dirty. It looked like it had just been picked up. They had to wait for it to adapt to the environment before giving it an injection. Just as the shop owner was about to decline, a tall figure suddenly appeared behind Yun Shirshir. Mu Yaja stood behind her with a frosty expression. His eyes were as sharp as ice blades. When he saw that the shop owner was about to close, his face darkened. He seemed to be very dissatisfied with the shop owner's actions. Hence, he snorted coldly. Open the door. Oh my God. Chapter 945. The owner was so frightened by his gaze that his whole body shivered. He didn't even dare to question or refute. He turned around and fiddled with the door lock. He secretly cursed in his heart. Did this man have to be so fierce? Look at that gaze. It was as if he owed him millions. He was just opening a pet club. He wouldn't have offended anyone, right? What a scary man. Could it be that he's part of a gang? If he didn't open the door, was he going to shoot him? Thus, a certain owner who was about to go home for dinner was forced to stay in the shop and began to work hard to check the dog. Fortunately, although the dog was abandoned, it had all 4 limbs and was very healthy. It was already more than 3 months old. However, the breed of dogs was small, so this dog wouldn't grow much bigger. It was a cute little Pomeranian. It had caught a slight cold because it was caught in the rain. After bathing the dog, trimming its hair, giving it a shot of vaccine and deworming, it was done. Yun Shirshir carried the clean puppy and looked left and right. The puppy was adorable after its bath. It had a pair of big, bright eyes, beautiful fur, and pointy ears. It was very cute. This time, she was finally satisfied. Mu Yaja threw down the money and was about to leave, but the owner was an honest man. Seeing that the money was too much, he couldn't help but say kindly, Sir, you gave a little too much money. Mu Yaja suddenly turned around and glared at him. Take it. Don't talk nonsense. The owner was smart again. He was just short of answering a general's order in the army. Li Zhang slightly relaxed. Yes. On this end, Yun Shirshir was satisfied. Since the dog was well, she was naturally in a good mood. She bought some cute supplies from the pet club and busied herself on the 2nd floor for a long time before she finished decorating the kennel. Yun Shirshir looked at the kennel she had decorated and felt that it was very warm. Thus, She happily put the puppy in. At first, the dog wasn't used to it, but after a while, it got used to it and liked the bedroom Yun Shirshir decorated. Thus, she excitedly fed it. She busied herself for half a day on the second floor, fiddling with it for a long time before she reluctantly walked down. Just as she walked down the stairs, Yun Shirshir heard the dog's uneasy barking. It seemed that it had lost its sense of security after leaving Yun Shirshir, or it was afraid of the dark like Yun Shirshir. In short, it was restless. Yun Shirshir was also flustered by the puppy's pitiful cries. She turned back to look at it 3 times with every step. In the end, she could not bear it any longer and ran toward the kennel, shouting, "Little Zhezha! Little Zhezha!" That seemed to be the name she gave to this puppy. Mu Yaja, who was sitting on the sofa and reading the financial newspaper, could not help but turn ashen. This woman, did she have to give the dog such a name? It was really ear-piercing to him. Yun Shirshir stayed on the second floor and didn't come down. Mu Yaja was a little dissatisfied. He thought sourly in his heart that he was regretting taking in this damn male dog. This woman was too much. She only had so little time after work, and now she gave it all to this stupid dog. He didn't know what was so good about this damn dog. Was it as handsome as him? Was it as rich as him? Was it as charming as him? Chapter 946. Mu Yaja gritted his teeth and thought, find a chance, oh no. When Yun Shirshir wasn't around, he would kick this stupid dog out, so that it wouldn't interfere with his private life. After a long time, Yun Shirshir reluctantly walked downstairs. She saw Mu Yaja sitting on the sofa, looking a little unhappy. She seemed to have thought of something, so she sat beside him with a smile and leaned on him coquettishly. Mu Yaja couldn't help but glance at this little woman coldly. Why? Did this woman finally know how to be grateful to him? She also knew that she had neglected him? She also knew how to curry favor with him. How could he not know what this little woman was thinking? So he pretended to be indifferent and didn't look at her. His voice was cold and emotionless. What's the matter? Mu Yaja, I have something to tell you. She sounded so intimate when she called the dog's name, but she sounded so distant when she called him. Mu Yaja felt a little sour because of this. It couldn't be anything good for her to say. Could it be that she had to do something to compensate him? Seeing that Mu Yaja didn't speak, Yun Shirshir simply said bluntly, let's hire a nanny for the dog. When Mu Yaja heard this, the corners of his eyes suddenly twitched violently. Hire a nanny for the dog. He thought that this woman's thoughts were easy to understand, but now he had seen it for himself. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the ocean. Seeing that his face was getting gloomier, Yun Shirshir was a little puzzled. She didn't know what this man was thinking. His expression was so ugly. She didn't seem to have said anything wrong. So she didn't care about him and told him her doubts. Here's what I think. Think about it. There are usually only the 2 of us in this apartment. You usually have to go to the office, and I have to go to work. The dog is so small, and there's no one to take care of it. Why don't we hire a nanny? Mu Yaja glared at her coldly. He looked away childishly and snorted. Waste of money. Waste of money. Yun Shirshir was shocked. Her delicate body trembled, and her mouth opened into a big O shape. Waste of money. This word actually came out of the mouth of a nouveau riche who had always been a spendthrift. This kind of feeling was too strong. It was too shocking. Yun Shirshir felt very unconvinced. Thus, she made another good suggestion. Since that's the case, I'll have to trouble you to take care of it for a while. When you go to the office, bring it with you. The man snorted. I'm sorry. I'm very busy. She couldn't help but worry, she couldn't help but hold on her face, muttered. Ah, that little Zhezha is it at home, will starve to death. S's, as, est, S's, S. Yun Shirshir pushed him away unhappily and said seriously, Little Zhezha, this name is so cute. Doesn't it sound familiar? As she spoke, she hugged him and kissed his cheek. Young Master Mu's cold's handsome face was suddenly dyed with a strange red. He glared at her coldly again, only to see Yun Shirshir pointing at his face in surprise. Mu Yaja, you're actually blushing. A certain man became even angrier. Shut up. Feeling that murderous gaze, Yun Shirshir was instantly intimidated. She sat on the sofa obediently and didn't dare to move. Send the dog away before tomorrow night. Chapter 947. Why? I don't like dogs. But I like it. Muyaja turned to face her with a dangerous glint in his eyes. Choose between me and it. Yun Shirshir said without hesitation. I choose little Jaja. Stupid woman, you said it. I'll kick this stupid dog out of the house tomorrow. After saying that, he stood up. Yun Shirshir watched as Muyaja walked into the study and slammed the door loudly. She couldn't help but be amused by him. Was this man jealous? How childish of him to be so serious with a puppy. Speaking of which, he had made an agreement with Yun Shirshir. Young Master Mu had said that no matter what, that stupid dog couldn't come downstairs. But today, this rule was broken by a certain woman. Early in the morning, Muyaja opened his eyes and met a pair of blinking dog eyes. After being stunned for a moment, he was completely stunned. That stupid dog saw that he was stunned and found it interesting, so it stuck out its pink and tender tongue and licked the tip of his nose. This lick caused trouble. Muyaja's morning temper and his misophobic eyes exploded. His hands immediately grabbed the dog's neck tightly. Ruthlessly ravaged. When he thought that dogs couldn't change their habit of eating shit, he thought of that especially dirty tongue. But now, this stupid dog actually used such a dirty tongue to lick him. Damn it! The dog's neck was choked by him just like that. Although he didn't use much strength, it was such a small dog after all. This bit of strength was enough to make it suffer. Therefore, in addition to being frightened, they let out a series of tragic howls. The dog mother who heard the news was still making breakfast when she saw the man and dog staring at each other. She was nervous and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Without thinking, she rushed over to save the puppy that was in deep trouble. She slapped the man hard and said angrily, Muyaja, let go of me. I'm going to die. It took a lot of effort to separate them. Yun Shirshir hugged the dog, who was about to roll his eyes, and said angrily, Muyaja, what are you doing? Why was he so ruthless? If I came a step later, little Ju would have been strangled to death by you. Muyaja glared at her and snorted coldly. Just in time. Let's have dog stew tonight. Yun Shirshir murmured, how can you be so vicious? It seemed that not only was this man's mouth poisonous, his heart was poisonous as well. Muyaja looked straight at her, squinted his eyes and said faintly, I clearly remember. We have agreed on 3 points. This dog cannot come downstairs. When Yun Shirshir heard this, she couldn't help but feel guilty. She stuck out her tongue, turned around, and ran away. When Muyaja sat at the dining table, the dog had already been coaxed upstairs by Yun Shirshir. The man didn't seem to be in a good mood. Oh, that wasn't important. What was important was that he didn't vent his anger on her. Yun Shirshir also knew that she had indeed gone overboard. She saw that the dog was so cute, clean and fragrant. She wanted to take the opportunity to build a good relationship between the father and son. In the end, she didn't expect Muyaja's misophobia to act up. It was too scary. Chapter 948. Muyaja glanced at her coldly from the corner of his eyes. He narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, I think you've misunderstood something. Yun Shirshir was stunned. What? It's not that I dislike dogs. I just don't like dogs at all. Of course, dog meat is an exception. After he said that, he glanced at Yun Shirshir meaningfully. His words were actually a little threatening. But to be honest, he really didn't eat dog meat. At most, he was just scaring a certain silly woman. Yun Shirshir was obviously frightened by his words. She quickly said, What are you doing? What evil intentions do you have? You're not going to do anything to little Jia, are you? Muyaja raised his eyebrows. I haven't done anything yet. If I eat it, what can you do? Yun Shirshir was a straightforward person. In her anxiety, she said something shocking. Damn it! I'll eat you! Muyaja was stunned. Then, he revealed a teasing and devilish smile. All right, I'd like to see how you're going to eat me. Yun Shirshir did not react to his words at first, but when she saw the playful look in his eyes, no matter how stupid she was, she finally understood what he meant. A strange blush crept up her cheeks, and she turned her face away in embarrassment and anger, refusing to look at him again. Muyaja thought that this woman was really too cute. She was even cuter than a dog. He hadn't even done anything yet, and she was already blushing. Thinking about that, he couldn't help but chuckle. Seeing him laugh, Yun Shirshir felt even more unnatural. Thus, she stuffed a piece of bread into his mouth and said with a frown, "Eat your breakfast. Go to work after you're done." After breakfast, Yun Shirshir stood at the door with the puppy and the pet kennel. She looked at Mu Yaja, who was wearing a suit leisurely. She opened her mouth to say something but stopped herself. It wasn't until Mu Yaja walked to the door and glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. Just as he was about to leave, Yun Shirshir finally threw caution to the wind and spoke. "That." Mu Yaja stopped in his tracks and started to nitpick. "Who's that?" Yun Shirshir was at a loss for words. She was stunned for half a second before she corrected herself. "Sha." It was rare for them to call each other so intimately. Mu Yaja was satisfied with this title. Seeing the smile on his face, Yun Shirshir hurriedly walked forward and said with a smile, "Sha, my company doesn't allow dogs." Mu Yaja's attitude was very indifferent. "Oh so." Yun Shirshir pointed at the dog. "Do you think you can do it?" Mu Yaja turned around and looked at her thoughtfully. Then he said coldly, "My company also prohibits employees from bringing pets." Yun Shirshir hurriedly walked forward and tidied his tie and clothes. She blinked her eyes and pretended to be cute. She pouted and said coquettishly, "Mu Yaja, you're the boss anyway. You're the big boss. No one dares to say anything if you bring a pet." Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes and said, "The company's CEO is taking the lead to violate the rules and regulations." Yun Shirshir was speechless. She clicked her tongue. "Is it that serious?" Mu Yaja said. "Yes." Yun Shirshir was a little sympathetic. "That's because you're not imposing enough. Under normal circumstances, even if the boss brings a lion, tiger, elephant, or even a woman to work, the employees wouldn't dare to bring a little hamster." Mu Yaja said, "Women are pets too." Yun Shirshir said, "Little Jaja isn't a pet either. He's your son." Chapter 949. Yun Shirshir's coaxing and pestering were all to no avail. She hugged the dog and refused to let go. If she really left the dog alone at home, it would definitely starve to death. How could she bear to see the puppy suffer at such a young age? Hence, she clenched her teeth and grabbed the corner of Mu Yaja's shirt pitifully. She shook the corner of his shirt and said, "Daddy!" Her words had hit the nail on the head. Mu Yaja turned his head slowly and glanced at her. Yun Shirshir pursed her lips and made up her mind. She raised the dog in front of him and said, "Take it in for a while. I'll agree to one condition." Mu Yaja looked at her for 3 seconds and suddenly asked, "Anything?" Yun Shirshir nodded vigorously. Mu Yaja said, "One is not enough. I want 3. Yun Shirshir's eyes widened in astonishment. "Why are you still bargaining?" Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows. "Why? You don't want to?" After that, he pretended to leave. Yun Shirshir hurriedly pulled him back. She gritted her teeth and said, "Fine. 3 it is. You have to treat it well. You're not allowed to starve it or hit it." Mu Yaja did not reply, which meant that he had agreed. "Send it to my car." Yun Shirshir giggled and carried the dog into the car. Her eagerness finally made Mu Yaja lose his composure. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. Mu Yaja first sent Yun Shirshir to the company. When he arrived at the company, the security guard opened the car door. Mu Yaja threw the keys into his hand and asked him to park the car as usual. When he got out of the car, he seemed to have thought of something. He turned around and instructed the security guard, "Send that stupid dog to my office." "Yes, CEO Mu." When Minyu escorted the puppy to the CEO's office, it attracted a lot of attention. "Special Assistant Min, is that a puppy you're holding? Isn't it forbidden to bring pets to work?" "Special Assistant Min, you're taking the lead in violating the company's rules." Minyu replied, "This is the CEO's dog. He asked me to bring it to the office." As soon as he said that, the employees instantly changed their expressions and exclaimed, "Oh, not only is Chairman Mu handsome, even his puppy is so cute." Yes, yes. What a cute dog. I didn't expect President Mu to be so kind. I heard that men who like small animals must be very gentle inside. Minyu fell silent. Little Zhezhe was sent to the CEO's office. In the morning, Mu Yaja had 2 board meetings. Naturally, Minyu had to follow him and take notes. Before the meeting, Minyu fed the puppy some water. Little Zhezhe was obviously frightened to be in an unfamiliar environment. Its whole body was trembling. It raised its small and cute head and looked at Minyu as if he was a demon king. Its body was trembling even more. When it saw the water that Minyu gave it, it twitched its nose vigilantly. After sniffing for a long time, it stuck out its pink tongue and licked it a few times. Patter, patter. Minyu saw how cute it was and couldn't help but reach out to touch it. Little Zhezhe shrank back in shock. However, when it realized that Minyu didn't seem to have any bad intentions, it squinted its eyes and licked Minyu's fingers a few times. The puppy's teeth weren't fully grown yet. It didn't feel much pain when it bit Minyu's hand. It just felt itchy and numb. Minyu's heart was about to melt. Oh, it's so cute. Special Assistant Min, the meeting is about to start. An assistant knocked on the door and reminded him. Chapter 950. Seeing that he had left, Little Zhezhe panicked. It was all alone in such a large and unfamiliar environment. It immediately screamed helplessly and sadly a few times. Seeing that no one was paying attention to it, it whimpered sadly for a long time. Oh woo, oh woo. It covered its mouth and cried like a baby. Seeing that no one was paying attention to it, Little Zhezhe curled up in a corner and closed its eyes. Not long after, it woke up again and stood up clumsily. Its two chubby little paws rested on the edge of the box, and its two little legs rubbed against the box as if it wanted to climb out and explore this unknown and mysterious world. But its legs were short, weren't they? It could not climb out no matter how hard it tried. Little Zhezhe suddenly became anxious. It kept whining and jumping around in the kennel. With its efforts, the cardboard box collapsed and it successfully climbed out. It began to walk around leisurely, shaking its butt. It sniffed here and there, and its eyes sparkled with curiosity. This was perhaps the most privileged dog in the world. It could walk around the president's office of Dishing Financial Group so freely. If it were anyone else's dog, they would have been kicked away by Mu Yaja. But it was different. Yun Shirshir had picked it up. Mu Yaja had tolerated it. However, before going to the meeting, he had specifically told Minyu not to let the dog slip out. Mu Yaja was a misophobe. His office was very clean, and not a speck of dust was allowed. Every day, the cleaning lady would focus on cleaning his office. But the puppy did not understand. It wandered around to its heart's content, scratching at the expensive leather sofa and gnawing at the corner of Mu Yaja's solid wood desk, leaving behind a ghastly set of teeth marks. After a while, it ran to the expensive carpet and peed in satisfaction. Now that Mu Yaja was not around, the huge office was its playground. When it was tired, it stretched out its legs and lay on the floor. However, after a few seconds, it stood up restlessly. Suddenly, it ran to the door and scratched at it eagerly, as if it wanted to go out. But who would care about it now? It seemed to be impatient as its two claws madly scratched the solid wooden door. However, seeing that no one was paying attention to it, it could no longer hold it in. It circled around on the spot, its nose twitching as it constantly made sniffing sounds. Finally, its small body quivered, and it arched its back. Its four limbs moved closer, and its butt trembled violently. Then, with a poof, it defecated a pile of smelly feces. This time, it finally felt comfortable. It spread its claws and walked around a few more times before lying down on the carpet and falling asleep. After the meeting ended, Mu Yaja walked to the office while giving instructions to Minyu. Just as he pushed the door open and took a step forward, he felt that he had stepped on something soft. His face stiffened and his eyes turned cold. Minyu walked up to him and saw his back stiffened at the door. He was a little surprised. He raised his head and saw his tense and gloomy face. Puzzled, he asked, "President, what's wrong?" Mu Yaja lifted his leather shoes stiffly. Under his feet was a puddle of poop that he had pampered. Chapter 951. Minyu's face turned green when he saw this. He wanted to laugh but did not dare to. Mu Yaja was furious. He did not even need to think to know who did this. He stopped at the door and looked around. Soon, he saw the deep claw marks on the leather sofa. Little Zhezhe's claws were not flat. They were very sharp and had scratched several places. Mu Yaja's face turned even darker. However, when he saw the bite marks on the corner of the desk, his face turned gloomy. Minyu was observing from the side. He was so scared that he did not even dare to breathe. Mu Yaja suddenly turned his head slowly and looked at him coldly. he said in an unfriendly tone. I remember that I told you not to let that stupid dog out. Minyu lowered his head and said guiltily, Yes. Then what's going on? Muyaja looked at the indescribable marks on his feet. His eyes were sharp and scary. Give me an explanation. President, this stepping on a dick meant that it was lucky. However, he did not dare to say this out loud. But there was no other way. Humans had 3 natural urges, and so did dogs. It was so small. How could it hold it in? He immediately ordered the cleaning auntie to come over and clean it up. Then, he quickly replaced the desk that was bitten by little Jaja. Even the damaged sofa was replaced. Then, his assistant hurriedly bought a new pair of leather shoes. As for the shoes that had stepped on a dick, they naturally had to be thrown away. Damn stupid dog. Muyaja stood in the office and looked around. However, he could not find any trace of that stupid dog. Where's the dog? He asked. Minyu immediately searched everywhere. Finally, he found little Jaja, who was trembling uneasily in the corner. He brought the puppy in front of Muyaja. Muyaja stared at it coldly. He wanted to flare up a few times, but he held it back. The puppy was so small that he even suspected that it would be on the verge of death if he slapped it. Suppressing his anger, he threw it into a corner and punished it. How could little Jaja stand still? It blinked its eyes innocently. When Muyaja glared at it, it shuddered violently and cried out in fear. Don't shout! Muyaja bellowed. Little Jaja was so scared that he kept quiet. His whole body trembled as he looked at it. His eyes were watery and he looked so innocent. Can I shit in the office? He questioned. Little Jaja tilted his head, as if he did not understand his words. Answer! Under Muyaja's cold gaze, the little puppy was so scared that it let out an "a-woo" sound, and its gaze became timid. Face the wall and reflect on your mistakes. He held it and turned it around so that it faced the wall. Little Jaja timidly turned around and stared at him innocently, as if silently accusing him of being rude. For a moment, he actually saw the shadow of Yun Shirshir in its bewildered eyes. Many times, she had also stared at him with such eyes. He actually felt a little sorry for it. I'll let you off this time. If there's a next time. His voice came to an abrupt end. His gaze was terrifying and cold. Little Jaja was almost paralyzed by his gaze. With a muffled groan, he stood up and threw it back into the kennel. Then, he returned to his desk to deal with his own matters. However, not long after, he felt that something was rubbing against his trousers. Chapter 952. He kicked it to the side impatiently. Even though he didn't use much strength, it still lost its balance and fell backwards, tumbling heavily. Little Jaja seemed unwilling to give up. It ran to his side and continued to pull at his trousers with its paws. Muyaja kicked it to the side again. Go back to your nest. After being ignored, little Jaja began to howl. Each howl was louder than the previous one, and in the end, it actually howled at the top of its lungs. A woo-woo. Its howls sounded miserable, as if it was sad that he had ignored it. Muyaja finally lost his patience. He lifted it up and placed it on his lap. Thus, it stopped barking and found a place to curl up in the corner of his arms. Slowly, it subconsciously burrowed into his suit jacket. The office was air-conditioned. It obviously felt cold. Muyaja's face was so dark that it was unreasonable. What was wrong with him? Why did he promise that stupid woman to bring this stupid dog to work? He couldn't concentrate on his work for the whole day because this stupid dog always seemed to have a way to make him angry. Hence, when Minyu pushed the door open and entered, he was surprised to see Muyaja sitting in front of his desk with a dark face. Boss. Muyaja was obviously in an extremely gloomy mood. Minyu walked over at once, only to see the ignorant puppy in Muyaja's arms, sleeping soundly with its 4 paws in the air. Oh God! Did this dog want to go to heaven? One must know that Muyaja's obsession with cleanliness was known to all. How could he allow a dog to run wild on him? Not only did it fall asleep, but it also seemed to be in a dream. Its 4 claws twitched all of a sudden as it kicked and stained Muyaja's white and clean shirt with dust. Minyu was stunned. Boss, don't you hate dogs the most? If you know, then why don't you take this stupid dog away? Muyaja glared at him. Minyu immediately picked up the dog. Change out of this suit for me. Minyu immediately ordered his men to buy him a new suit to change into. Your job this afternoon is to take good care of this dog. After Mu Yaja gave the order, he left the room. There was an important meeting in the afternoon. Minyu carried the puppy with a smile on his face. On this day, Yun Shirshir received a call from Jiang Li. Over the phone, Jiang Li stammered as if she wanted to say something but didn't dare to. Yun Shirshir laughed and said, Jiang Li, do you have something to say to me? Jiang Li hummed softly, but did not say it immediately. Instead, she mulled over it a few times in her heart. Speaking of which, it was quite ironic. Before the class reunion, when her classmates did not know about Yun Shirshir's situation, they all looked down on Yun Shirshir. In fact, they even looked down on her. In university, Huang Lili fanned the flames and created rumors that Yun Shirshir was a mistress of a rich man outside of school. She said that she was a secret lover that could not be seen in public. Compared to these, there were even more unbearable words. Huang Lili even created rumors that Yun Shirshir was a public transport that could be slept with as long as one paid money. She said that 30,000 yuan was enough to keep her for a month. She even warned the boys in school not to be fooled by Yun Shirshir's appearance. She said that she looked pure and innocent, but what was the truth? She was very cheap. Chapter 953. Yun Shirshir did not know about it, but Jiang Li did. During the period when Yun Shirshir was suspended from school, the rumors about her in school were extremely unbearable. Later on, due to an accident, Yun Shirshir gave birth to a child out of wedlock. However, it indirectly verified the rumors that Huang Lili had spread. Huang Lili also secretly said that Yun Shirshir's child was an illegitimate child, a bastard. So what if it was a son? A bastard child who could not see the light of day would not be acknowledged by wealthy families. Furthermore, no one was willing to be friends with Yun Shirshir. Those boys who had pursued Yun Shirshir in the past all felt that such a girl was filthy. Some even felt ashamed of having liked Yun Shirshir. At first, Jiang Li also believed that Yun Shirshir was really a mistress of a rich man. However, unlike others, she was always polite to Yun Shirshir. That was because she felt that Yun Shirshir was quite pitiful. With such a pitiful heart, Jiang Li often helped her. Since things had turned out this way, Yun Shirshir would probably not be able to get married in the future, right? Which man would be willing to marry an 18-year-old girl who gave birth to a child out of wedlock? Many of the female classmates in the class were quite gloating. They all felt that Yun Shirshir was actually quite pitiful. Raising a child alone, she must have been very down and out. Hence, many of the female classmates were smug and even compared themselves to Yun Shirshir. Seeing how the once famous school belle was now in such a sorry state, they could not help but feel an inexplicable sense of superiority. However, that class reunion overturned everyone's understanding. Yun Shirshir actually had a boyfriend. And he was the CEO of Dishing Financial Group. Gosh, that was the Mu Group that could cause the stock market to tremble with a yawn. Naturally, they did not believe it and were skeptical. However, when Wang Chuanda appeared and treated Mu Yaja so respectfully, how could it be fake? After the class reunion, the Du family quickly suffered. She heard that because Du Jiayan and Huang Lili had offended Yun Shirshir and said those unbearable things at the class reunion, the Muse had suppressed the Du family so badly that they were on the brink of bankruptcy in just a few days. Only then did these people truly believe it. At the same time, they were envious, jealous, and in awe of Yun Shirshir. Later, after Du Jiayan begged Yun Shirshir, the next day, the Du family's projects slowly recovered. He was surprised and overjoyed, feeling extremely grateful to Yun Shirshir. She really took the words he begged her to heart. However, Huang Lili's family underwent a drastic change. Huang Lili was originally from a poor family. Her hometown was a village in the city of Beijing. Father Huang used to be in the limelight. However, the Asian financial crisis happened. His business was destroyed and his factory closed down. In the end, he was heavily in debt and had no choice but to return to his hometown. Later, Huang Lili hooked up with Du Jiayan. Under the Du family's arrangement, Father Huang became the village secretary. Although it was not as glorious as before, it was still smooth sailing for him. However, recently, Father Huang was anonymously reported for abusing his position and embezzling more than 1 million yuan. Not only that, Father Huang even embezzled the government's poverty support fund. The total embezzlement amounted to several million yuan. The village in the city was a poverty-stricken county that was heavily supported by the capital. The annual support fund amounted to several million yuan. Father Huang's case was especially serious. According to the law, not only would all his assets be confiscated, he would also face a life sentence. Life sentence. Chapter 954. She did not even need to think to know who was behind this. Why did the incident suddenly come to light? Huang Lili didn't need to guess who the anonymous informant was. She already knew who it was. This time, she was thoroughly frightened. She rushed home in the middle of the night, but her father had already been taken away by the Disciplinary and Inspection Commission for investigation. Mother Huang's hair turned white overnight, and she fainted from crying several times. She suffered a stroke and was sent to the hospital. She was still in a coma and was still under observation. All of her family's assets were frozen. Huang Lili had no choice but to use the little savings she had to pay for her mother's medical expenses. Now she was penniless. This was what it meant to be at the end of one's rope. Mother Huang still needed follow-up treatment, and the cost was high. If she was not treated in time, she would be in danger of becoming a vegetable. Huang Lili was so frightened that she did not know what to do. She called Du Jian for help, but he coldly rejected her. Huang Lili, you still have the cheek to call me? We've already broken up. Don't call me again to bother me. Because of you, the Du family suffered so much. Isn't that enough? Huang Lili begged softly. Jian, on account of our friendship, can you help me this time? You still have the cheek to talk about friendship with me? Her words made Du Jian furious. Because of you, the Du family almost went bankrupt. What about you? What did you do? Huang Lili, you're the one who broke up with me. Since you can't bear the hardships with me, why should I help you now that you're in trouble? You reap what you sow. If it weren't for your vanity and offending someone you shouldn't have, would you end up like this? The Du family has yet to recover and can't even protect itself. You should take care of yourself. With that, he hung up the phone. When Huang Lili tried calling him again, she was told that she could not get through. She had probably been blacklisted by him. The next day, the hospital sent another reminder. The money she had saved in the hospital was not enough to cover the medical expenses, and she had already owed several bills. At her wit's end, she naturally did not dare to look for Yun Shishir personally. Thus, she sought out Zhang Li, hoping that the latter could plead for mercy from Yun Shishir on her behalf on account of the fact that they were once classmates. She hoped that the latter would be merciful and not force the Huang family into a corner. Zhang Li rejected her at first. However, Huang Lili was exhausted from crying. She even said that if this went on, she would be too ashamed to continue living with her father and her mother's. Zhang Li's heart softened, and she agreed. However, after dialing Yun Shishir's number, she to speak. Shishir, have you heard about what happened to Huang Lili? What's the matter? I heard that Huang Lili's father was reported anonymously. It was said that he was corrupt and took bribes. The amount of money he received was several million. He has been taken away for investigation. If he is convicted, I'm afraid he will be sentenced to life imprisonment. Yun Shishir muttered to herself for a moment. Zhang Li continued. Her mother couldn't take the blow and suffered a stroke. She's still in the hospital now, but the family's funds have been frozen, so they can't pay for the medical expenses. If she's not treated in time, she'll become a vegetable. How tragic. Yun Shishir laughed softly. Zhang Li, what do you mean by telling me this? Chapter 955. Yun Shishir said casually. Do you also think that I'm selfless enough to forgive someone who used unscrupulous means to slander me? Zhang Li said anxiously. Shishir, don't misunderstand. That's not what I meant. I just feel that Huang Lili is pitiful. Although she's in the wrong, isn't this punishment a little too severe? Punishment. Pitiful. Yun Shishir was so angry that she laughed. Zhang Li, are you muddle-headed? If her father wasn't corrupt, why would he be reported anonymously? Zhang Li was speechless. Yun Shishir laughed again and said, if her father was just and honest, why would he be afraid that others would take advantage of him? If her father hadn't brought this upon himself, her mother wouldn't have suffered such a blow and all these things wouldn't have happened. These are all their own sins. Don't tell me you're suspecting that I sent someone to report them anonymously and made up those baseless accusations to pin the blame on them? Zhongli was also a little angry, but she didn't dare to say anything. She only said, Sure, I'm just feeling sorry for Huang Lily. Don't be so harsh with your words. Don't hurt our friendship over such a small matter. Moreover, I didn't mean it that way. Don't overthink it. Zhongli, people have to learn to put themselves in other people's shoes. If you have empathy and put yourself in my shoes, if you were slandered and hurt like this, would you forgive her? Zhongli said. Of course not. Huang Lily has gone too far. That's what you said. Moreover, I didn't harm her. This is all her family's own sins. She deserves to go to jail for taking bribes. The law is strict and fair. Since she did something wrong, she should be punished, right? Yun Sheshe had already made her stance clear. Zhongli sighed and said, I'm sorry, Sheshe. I may not be able to empathize with the hurt you have suffered, but I don't mean to ask you to forgive Huang Lily. I was only asked by her to plead on her behalf. Since you've made your stance clear, then this matter will end here. I won't mention it again. After that, Zhongli apologized profusely and hung up the phone. Yun Sheshe frowned. Actually, every circle had its own rules of the game. Since he wanted to survive in this circle, he had to abide by the rules of the game. If they didn't follow the rules, they would definitely be eliminated. Lin Fengtian purposely filmed all her scenes with Gu Xingze. Normally, a youth movie like this would only take Liang 3 months to film. Since Yun Sheshe and Gu Xingze were in their best condition, their scenes were completed within 10 days. The production crew even held a celebratory banquet for them. Yun Sheshe and Gu Xingze took a selfie and posted it on the internet, announcing that they had finished filming their scenes. The fans of the original novel were excited and looked forward to the release of the movie. Yun Sheshe couldn't help but feel a little absent-minded after working on the set for more than 2 months. This was her first movie and the entire process was like a dream. She understood that the reason why she and Gu Xingze were filmed together was to take care of her. At the celebratory banquet, Lin Fengtian made a special feature of the behind-the-scenes photos and gave it to her. Chapter 956. Yun Sheshe was deeply grateful for this. Being able to work with an outstanding director like Lin Fengtian in her first movie was something she did not even dare to dream of. However, something unpleasant happened during the celebratory banquet. Yun Sheshe was arranged to sit at the same table as Yang Mi and Lu Jingtian. During the banquet, when Lu Jingtian stood up to make a toast, she accidentally spilled the red wine in her hand on her. This sudden attack caught her off guard. Yun Sheshe's body stiffened slightly as her gaze fell on her dress. The bright red wine spilled on her dress, causing it to bloom like a flower. Lu Jingtian covered her mouth in horror. Oh no! Sheshe, I didn't do it on purpose. Yun Sheshe sneered. I know you didn't do it on purpose. How could she say it out loud if she did it on purpose? Yun Sheshe did not even look at her as she wiped her dress with a wet towel and sighed helplessly. This dress was ruined. It was just a dress. If it got dirty, she could just throw it away. Hence, she got up and returned to the nanny van, only to find Lu Jingtian following closely behind her. She turned around warily and squinted her eyes. Why are you following me? Yun Sheshe, you seem to be very pleased with yourself. Lu Jingtian sneered. Her eyes were full of contempt and mockery. Yun Sheshe raised her brow slightly and sneered. I don't know what you mean. Lu Jingtian's eyes turned sharp as she shouted, You do. After a pause, she suddenly said aggressively, Do you think that you can be so arrogant just because Brother Mu is supporting you? Do you think that he truly loves you? He's only interested in you on a whim. Once this is over, do you think you can still be as doted on as you are today? Yun Sheshe impatiently interrupted her. Lu Jingtian, I'm tired of hearing such words from you. Song Enya had said such words before, too. That Missy and Lu Jingtian were close, so there was a high chance that the Missy had said something to her to disgust her. Lu Jingtian was annoyed at being interrupted, but she then sneered. You're the female lead in this movie. Once it's released, your fame will surely soar. You won't be far from becoming famous overnight. Still, I really look down on you. If not for Brother Mu, you wouldn't be where you are today. Yun Sheshe blandly replied, I'm famous because of my own capabilities. Lu Jingtian sneered as if she had just heard a joke. TSK. What a nice thing to say. If Brother Mu hadn't given you so many resources, would you have become so famous? Dream on. Why? Are you that envious of me? Yun Shirshir chuckled, unable to hide the teasing in her eyes. Of course. Lu Jingtian's face was contorted out of shape. How? Lu Jingtian flew into a rage out of humiliation after being exposed by her. What's there to be envious of a B*TCH who relied on the unspoken rules to get to where she is? Yun Shirshir was unfazed and only said faintly, "You're better than someone with mediocre acting skills and poor script skills. You can't even recite a complete line. If not for your background, Director Lin would have fired you long ago." Chapter 957. You're spouting nonsense. There's no such thing. Do you have any acting skills? It's all because you have that face that fits the role of the character in the script. Lu Jingtian did not realize how sour her words were. Yun Shirshir chuckled. There's a saying, beauty and luck are also a form of strength. After a pause, she smiled sweetly. If you're capable, why don't you look prettier than me? Lu Jingtian was stunned for a moment before she gritted her teeth. Yun Shirshir enjoyed the sight of her livid face and smiled. Besides, are you in a position to say that I don't have any acting skills? In terms of strength, I can't be compared to you. Lu Jingtian was exasperated. Humph. What kind of power do you have? Do you have the power to be taken advantage of? That's right. Beauty is a form of strength, so are you using your beauty to seduce Brother Mu? Yun Shirshir, I think you're the reincarnation of a vixen who specializes in seducing men. Yun Shirshir cast her a sidelong glance. Indeed, summer insects could not talk about ice. Some people were so jealous that they could not be reasoned with. She coldly said, even without Mu Yaja, I'll still use my strength to prove myself. Lu Jingtian hooted, if you're capable, don't rely on him. Yun Shirshir could not be bothered with her as she maintained a cold face. Seeing her indifference, Lu Jingtian gritted her teeth. Suddenly, she thought of something and smiled contemptuously. Actually, I think you're quite pitiful. Yun Shirshir did not want to bother with her though, so why waste her breath on her? With this thought in mind, she turned around, only to hear her say from behind, do you know? Brother Mu will be holding a press conference soon to announce his marriage. Yun Shirshir's footsteps paused. Her body stiffened slightly, but she did not turn around. She furrowed her brows slightly. Lu Jingtian took a few steps toward her from behind and spoke in a voice full of arrogance. I heard this from my dad too. I heard that Brother Mu is holding a press conference to announce his marriage with Mu Wanru. Hee. In other words, he and Mu Wanru were about to get married. If he really loved you, would he marry another woman? You're just a canary that he's keeping in a cage. He'll play with you when he's happy, and when he's tired of you, it's nothing more than that. That's why I feel sorry for you. You see him as your entire world, but he only sees you as a plaything. Do you really think he cares about you that much? Lu Jingtian was also in love with Mu Yaja, but to her, Mu Yaja was undoubtedly high and mighty. She knew that Mu Yaja and her were like heaven and earth. In her heart, he was like a god. But why was Yun Shirshir able to occupy his heart? Receive all of his love. What right did Yun Shirshir have to have what she couldn't have? Yun Shirshir was silent for a long time. Mu Yaja is going to hold a press conference to announce his marriage? Why didn't he mention this to me? She did not believe that Mu Yaja would announce his marriage with Mu Wanru at a press conference, but if he had other intentions, he should explain it to me clearly, should he not? Yun Shirshir suddenly clutched the corner of her shirt as a conflicted look flashed across her eyes. You see him as your entire world, but he only sees you as a plaything. Was that so? Was that really the case? On the island in the middle of the lake, he had created a mysterious romance for her. In her impression, a man like him had never put in so much effort for anyone. Chapter 958. He had also made a vow to dote on her legitimately. Every time they were intimate, she would look at him with a doting gaze that couldn't be faked. Could it be that those were all lies? Did he do all this for her to deceive her feelings? No way, right? Words could deceive the heart. However, the emotions in his eyes couldn't be deceived no matter what. She regarded him as her whole world. He, on the other hand, used the whole world to protect her. Why should she listen to someone else's one-sided statement and doubt him then? Yun Shirshir turned around expressionlessly and sneered when she saw the smug look on the other's face. Lu Jingtian was taken aback when she saw her laughing instead of being angry. You're really thick-skinned. How can you be so cheap and still laugh shamelessly? Yun Shusher's eyes were full of contempt as she coldly said, Lu Jingtian, you're the pitiful one, aren't you? What? Do you know how Mu Yaja treats me? Do you know how he feels about me? Lu Jingtian choked hard. Yun Shusher's lips curled into a smile that she found extremely dazzling. Like is different from love. Love is unconditional trust, so I believe him. As for you, who are you? What right do you have to sow discord here? Lu Jingtian laughed in anger. Sow discord? Ha, ha ha. You're really pitiful. It seems that you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. I'm really looking forward to the day you're abandoned. You must be in a sorry state. All right then. Let's wait and see, Yun Shusher said nonchalantly. Lu Jingtian's smile disappeared at her words, and she became angry out of humiliation. Yun Shusher, however, merely smiled and turned to leave. She clenched her fists tightly, feeling a nameless fire in her heart. She was so angry that she lost her rationality. She actually took a few steps forward and grabbed Yun Shusher's arm. You're not allowed to leave. Did I say you could leave? I'm not done yet. She originally wanted to humiliate her, but she ended up being humiliated instead. She was filled with grievances and had nowhere to vent them. Yun Shusher was pulled hard by her and fell to the ground. Lu Jingtian cursed coldly. She flipped over and straddled the woman before slapping her face a few times like a shrew. I'll kill you, you vixen. Born with a seductive face, she seduced men everywhere. I don't know what kind of ability you have, or what kind of charm you have. Not only is Brother Xingzi so smitten by you, even Brother Mu has fallen for your seduction. I'll beat you to death, you bitch. I'll kill you. How could Yun Shusher be willing to submit obediently? How could she be the kind to be slaughtered? Did she not know how to retaliate when Lu Jingtian hit her? Hence, she grabbed Lu Jingtian's arm with all her strength. Perhaps, she had been humiliated to the extreme, but she somehow managed to push the other away with all her strength. She stood up, and Lu Jingtian was about to pounce on her again. Yun Shusher nimbly dodged, and the latter fell to the ground, caught off guard. Yun Shusher then turned around and pinned her down, strangling her neck. Ah! How dare you strangle me? Lu Jingtian cursed. Her usual ladylike demeanor in the production team was gone, and she was like a crazy shrew. Chapter 959. Yun Shusher returned all the slaps she had received from her earlier and gave her a few hard slaps. If you like him, compete with him openly. I despise people like you the most for resorting to such despicable means. With that, Yun Shusher gave her a few more slaps without hesitation. Lu Jingtian's legs kicked wildly, but Yun Shusher suddenly choked her with a little force. Don't move! Yun Shusher threatened angrily. Lu Jingtian's face flushed red, but she still glared at her defiantly. However, when she felt a suffocating sensation on her neck, she widened her eyes in disbelief. This woman is really using all her strength to choke me. I can't breathe. Lu Jingtian's hands clutched her wrists tightly, her sharp nails leaving deep bloody marks on the back of her hands. Yun Shusher, on the other hand, did not seem to be afraid of pain or the woman's threatening gestures. Seeing that the latter was still cursing and swearing, she increased the strength in her hands. Lu Jingtian felt suffocated and could no longer utter a word. It was as if she would faint in the next second. Yun Shusher saw that her face was flushed red, as if blood was about to drip out, and loosened her grip slightly. She had only pinched her to scare her. She wanted her to know that she was not to be trifled with even if she was usually docile. Lu Jingtian, I'm warning you. I won't attack unless I'm attacked, but if someone attacks me, I won't tolerate it to the end, either. With that, Yun Shusher stood up, glared at her coldly, and walked away swiftly. Lu Jingtian got up from the ground, feeling aggrieved and afraid. Tears streamed down her face and wet her clothes. Yun Shusher's gaze earlier was too scary. Now that she thought about it carefully, she was both shocked and frightened. Yun Shusher was really bold. How dare she strangle her? She had never been hit by anyone at this age. Even when she made a mistake when she was young, her parents could not bear to hit her. This Yun Shusher was the first person who dared to lay a hand on her. At the thought of this, she was overwhelmed with grievances. She originally wanted to go back to the celebration party, But now she was angered by Yun Shirshir. Her dress was dirty, and she was in a sorry state. Besides, she had lost her appetite, so she went straight to the lounge, picked up her phone, and called her niece. The moment the call got through, she burst into tears. Song Enya was startled by her cries and hurriedly inquired about what had happened. The two of them were best friends from junior high school to university, and their relationship was very close. Lu Jingtian recounted what had happened to her niece with exaggerated details. She could not stop complaining. Enya, she actually hit me and even pinched me. You didn't see how overboard she was. She really pinched me hard. Song Enya consoled her for a while, only to hear the other lashing out indignantly. Enya! How could there be such a disgusting woman in this world? This woman is really disgusting. What right does she have to shout at me? She even said that we'll wait and see. I'm really looking forward to seeing her fall to rock bottom. I really want to see how down and out Brother Mu is when he abandons her. Jingtian, don't be sad. Did she really pinch you? Song Enya was still in disbelief. Chapter 960. Song Enya was furious. Yun Shirshir was really arrogant to dare offend them. Last time, it was her, and this time, it was Lu Jingtian. How could she be so arrogant? Hence she said to Lu Jingtian, Jingtian, don't be sad. Don't worry. I'll definitely avenge you. Okay. Lu Jingtian asked with teary eyes, how do you plan to take revenge? Hee. Just listen to my arrangements when the time comes. Back home, Yun Shirshir went to the bathroom to take a shower. Her body was stained with mud from the scuffle with Lu Jingtian earlier. She washed her body carefully and changed into a white dress. Standing in front of the mirror, she lowered her head to look at her arm. The bloody scratches caused by Lu Jingtian were gradually fading, and there was a scratch on the back of her hand from the latter's nails. The wound was very shallow. It was just a layer of skin, so there was no need to put a bandage on it. After dinner, Yu Yu and Xiao Yichen went to the courtyard to play badminton. The two little guys had been sticking together recently. Whether it was sleeping or doing homework, Xiao Yichen liked to stick to Yu Yu. As for Yu Yu, although she despised Xiao Yichen's stupidity on the surface, she gradually opened her heart to Xiao Yichen and became more cheerful. Yun Shirshir sat on the sofa, recalling Lu Jingtian's words in her mind. She felt inexplicably vexed. When Mu Yaja returned from the office, he opened the door and saw her alone on the sofa. The lights in the living room were off, and she was leaning against the corner of the sofa quietly. It seemed that she had fallen asleep. He walked to her side and turned on the lights, which woke her up. She opened her eyes, still in a daze. Her eyes were half open, and she seemed to be in a daze. She looked very innocent. However, because of her pair of seductive peach blossom eyes, she looked lazy and seductive. Seeing that he had returned, she immediately sat up and raised her head to look at him. With a faint smile, she said in a hoarse voice, "You're back." He glanced at the table and asked, "Have you eaten?" "Yes, I have." She suddenly added, "Yu Yu went to play badminton with Xiao Yichen." As she spoke, she looked behind him. "Where's the dog?" Mu Yaja said, "In the courtyard, playing with two little guys." "Oh." He sat down on the sofa and saw that her hair was slightly messy, so he reached out and tucked a few strands of her hair behind her ear. His touch quickly scalded the tips of her ears. They were red, as if she was shy. Yun Shirshir suddenly remembered what had happened today. She pursed her lips and wanted to ask something. She tentatively opened her mouth but didn't know where to start. Mu Yaja saw the strange expression on her face. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "What's wrong? Why do you look so pale?" Today, the production team held a celebration party. Yun Shirshir looked at him and opened her mouth. She wanted to say something but stopped herself. In the end, she didn't say anything. She also didn't ask about the media conference. Since she had chosen to believe him, she would believe him unconditionally until the end. Although she didn't understand the purpose of his media conference, she didn't believe that he would announce his marriage with Mu Wanru. Although she didn't understand why he kept her in the dark, she believed that he had his reasons for doing so. Chapter 961. Thus, she looked up and smiled. "Let's go for a walk." There was a very beautiful river in Beijing. At night, the riverside would be lit up with warm neon lights. It was very beautiful. Standing by the riverside and leaning against the railing, One could see the tallest building in Beijing. It was the symbol of Beijing, a colorful television tower. Both of them were extremely busy and rarely had time to take a leisurely stroll together. Mu Yaja had pushed off many things today, so he finally had some free time. The neon lights of the night market. Yun Shesher held onto Mu Yaja's arm as they walked. She saw many young couples sitting on the benches by the riverside, snuggling together and whispering sweet nothings. It was very romantic. It suddenly occurred to her that she and he seemed to have had very few serious engagements. Thus she tugged at Mu Yaja's sleeve and said with a smile, "Mu Yaja, go on a date with me." Upon hearing this, Mu Yaja followed her line of sight and smiled faintly. "We're already an old married couple, yet you still want to learn how to date like a youngster?" Yun Shesher's face darkened, and she muttered unhappily, "We're not old. I'm only 24. I'm not old yet. Also, who's an old married couple with you? We've been together for so long, and we've never gone on a date like other couples." "All right then. How do you want to go on a date?" Yun Shesher was unhappy. "Why does it seem like I'm forcing you?" Mu Yaja saw her aggrieved face and was amused. He crossed his arms and asked, "Then, Miss Yun Shesher, are you willing to go on a date with me?" Yun Shesher couldn't help but be amused. However, she restrained her smile and said reservedly, "I'll reluctantly agree." She couldn't help but think how blissful it was for them to be able to go on a date like a normal couple. If at this time, the two of them could sit side by side on a bench by the river and admire the beautiful night scenery, she would be very satisfied. Yun Shesher was about to pull Mu Yaja over to the bench, but she suddenly noticed that this guy was looking at a couple not far away with a thoughtful expression. She followed his line of sight and saw a couple hugging and kissing each other intimately. The woman's clothes were half removed to her shoulders, revealing her sexy spaghetti strap, while the man's hands were unscrupulously reaching into the woman's clothes, caressing her with abandon. The two of them acted intimately as if no one else was around, occasionally letting out suppressed gasps. The two of them were so engrossed in their kiss that they didn't seem to mind the scrutiny of the passers-by. The battle was getting more and more intense. Could it be that the two of them were going to put on a show of passion on the streets? So explosive? Yun Shesher blushed and her heart raced as she watched. She quickly turned her head away and didn't look anymore. Mu Yaja turned his face. His eyes were calm as he sized up Yun Shesher's awkward expression. His lips curled into a sinister smile as he whispered in her ear, "I heard that this method makes it easier for people to feel sweet passion. Why don't we give it a try?" Yun Shesher almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face burned even hotter. What are you trying to do? Isn't it good to take advantage of the night to do some exercise that's good for the body and mind? Get lost. Yun Shesher turned her head and casually pointed at a puff factory not far away. She changed the topic. "Mu Yaja, I want to eat puffs." Chapter 962. Stupid woman. She really couldn't take a joke. Mu Yaja held her hand and walked into the cozy little shop. When they walked in, they saw a child crouching excitedly in front of the bar counter, his watery eyes shining with anticipation. A short-haired woman stood by the side and looked helplessly at the child's silly look. She couldn't help but pinch his cheeks. Yun Shesher looked at him and couldn't help but think of Yu when he was 2 or 3 years old. Yu especially liked desserts. Sometimes, when Yun Shesher got off work early, she would take him to the dessert shop. The little guy was like that too. He would tiptoe in front of the display cabinet and look greedily at the desserts displayed in the refrigerator. But he wouldn't do that now. Yun Shesher ordered a set of matcha-flavored puffs and sat quietly at the bar counter with Mu Yaja. The shop owner placed a cream puff on the bar counter. The child couldn't wait to grab a cream puff with each hand and greedily put it into his mouth. The shop owner was tickled by his cute appearance and laughed. "Your child is so cute." The woman frowned and said mildly, "How about I give the cute puff to you? This little guy is very naughty." Startled, Yun Shesher turned to look at the woman with a smile. However, the woman patted the child's head lazily and said, "This little guy is very troublesome." With that said, the woman rubbed the child's fine hair on his forehead and complained half-jokingly, "Don't be fooled by how obedient he looks now. When he's naughty, it's really a headache." "Children, especially boys, are all naughty," the shop owner said with a smile. However, Mu Yaja lazily put his arm around Yun Shesher's shoulder and said slowly, "When my son was your age, he was also very naughty." Yun Shesher was slightly surprised. She didn't expect Mu Yaja to be like a normal person and chat with others. It felt a little strange. Perhaps the image of Mu Yaja in front of her had always been that of a high and mighty elite of the empire, the ruler of a storm of blood, like a god. Unexpectedly, he had such a normal side to him. Yun Shirshir blushed a little. What? Mu Yaja was a normal person. Haha, really? The woman was slightly surprised. Handsome. How old are you? You don't look like someone who has a child. 28. Wow, so young. Is this your lover? Mu Yaja lowered his head and glanced at Yun Shirshir, who was leaning against him. Then, he smiled gently and his eyes were filled with affection. Yes, she is my wife. Yun Shirshir's face turned even redder. She buried her face shyly. She is my wife. This sentence really made her blush and her heart beat faster. Immediately, a warm current flowed into her heart. For the first time in her life, she felt such an unfamiliar warmth. The woman walked out of the shop with the child. Mu Yaja stared at the woman's back until they disappeared into the night. Then, he slowly retracted his gaze. Yun Shirshir waved the bag of puffs in front of his eyes and asked puzzledly, Mu Yaja, what's wrong with you? Mu Yaja came back to his senses and smiled as he shook his head and said, Nothing. I just feel a little envious. Yun Shirshir didn't understand the meaning of his words for a moment. Sometimes, I really envy such an ordinary and simple family. Mu Yaja said sincerely. Chapter 963. Yun Shirshir was stunned. It was rare to hear such sentimental words from him. For a moment, she couldn't help but feel curious. Yun Shirshir stared at him with interest. Mu Yaja cast a sidelong glance at her. What are you looking at? Let's go. Wait. Yun Shirshir grabbed his hand, picked up the phone, and pulled him to her side. She pressed her face against his cheek, raised the phone, and turned on the camera. Come, smile. What do you want to do? Yun Shirshir said, Smile. We haven't taken a photo together yet. Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows. Don't put on such a serious expression. It's very scary. Smile for me. Mu Yaja looked at the camera blankly and suddenly revealed a cold smile. Click. Yun Shirshir took a photo and looked at it. She raised her eyebrows and said unhappily, Mu Yaja, your smile is so evil. Evil? Yun Shirshir didn't care anymore. She took a few photos and sent them to her private channel happily. What do you think of the couple's faces? Someone's smile is so evil. She looked up and asked, Mu Yaja, do you have a Weibo account? I didn't apply for one. Why didn't you apply for one? You're too outdated. Yun Shirshir couldn't help but criticize. Mu Yaja laughed. Not interested. Apply for one. I'll get it certified for you. I don't want to. Why not? It's a little troublesome. Then I'll get it for you. Mu Yaja was helpless. Weibo is boring. I don't understand what's so fun about it. Mr. Mu Yaja, your life is so boring. As she spoke, Yun Shirshir took out a small puffball and brought it to his lips. She said with a smile, Come try this shop's puff. It's delicious. Mu Yaja frowned slightly as he looked at the bubble ball. His face was full of unwillingness, but he didn't open his mouth. He didn't have a sweet tooth and had never eaten puffs before. Yun Shirshir saw the look of disgust on his face and complained, Why do you have such an expression? I'm feeding you puffs, not arsenic. Why do you look like I'm poisoning you? Mu Yaja said, I don't like it. Then have a taste. It's very delicious. Kama. She stuffed it into his mouth as she spoke. Mu Yaja was forced to take a bite. In an instant, the rich cream filled his mouth. He didn't like the taste. He couldn't swallow or spit it out. He frowned deeply. Yun Shirshir saw his face turn green and her eyes widened in shock. She asked in confusion, Hey, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? Mu Yaja opened his mouth and took a bite. The cream filled his mouth. He opened his eyes in shock. He clearly saw that the ball was round, but he didn't expect it to be wrapped in cream. He didn't like sweet things, especially cream. He would feel nauseous when he ate it. Seeing his face turn green, Yun Shirshir was shocked. She quickly asked, What's wrong? Does it taste bad? Mu Yaja held it in and didn't spit it out. After swallowing it, He suddenly felt sick of the taste in his stomach. Yun Shirshir saw that his expression was too cute and suddenly smiled mischievously. She made another puffball and waved it in front of him. Then, she took a bite in front of him. Chapter 964. It was rare for Yun Shirshir to see such an expression on his face. She found it extremely interesting and swallowed a few more puffs. Her mouth was full and cream stained her lips. Mu Yaja furrowed his brows and turned his head away from her. Yun Shirshir burst out laughing and said, "So you don't like cream?" Mu Yaja said disdainfully, "It's the way you eat that's too disgusting." Yun Shirshir fell silent. Seeing that he had walked ahead, she quickly followed behind him and offered him the puffs in a fawning manner. She raised her brows and asked, "Hee, I still have a few more puffs here. Aren't you going to eat them?" Mu Yaja turned his head away. "Nope." Yun Shirshir sighed and stood unhappily at the same spot. All right. It was fine if he didn't like it. Why did he have to show such an expression? It was as though he despised the food she was eating. She lowered her head and pouted her lips resentfully. She picked up the last puffball and bit it. Before she could swallow it, her chin was lifted up by a hand. Yun Shirshir looked up and saw Mu Yaja's handsome face suddenly magnified. His long and narrow eyes were curled up devilishly and his thin lips were slightly parted. Right after that, he gently bit the other half of the puff she was biting. His lips gently pressed against hers and cream flowed out. He curled his lips slightly and the tip of his tongue hooked the cream at the corner of her lips and licked it. The kiss was so gentle that Yun Shirshir was so shocked that her face and ears turned red. She was stunned on the spot and couldn't say a word for a long time. Mu Yaja bit off half of the puff and looked up. There was a smug smile at the corner of his lips as though he hadn't had enough yet. The tip of his tongue hooked the cream on his lips and he said casually, "It tastes pretty good." She didn't know if he was talking about the puffs or if he was referring to something else with his teasing tone. Yun Shirshir pursed her lips. Her eyes were filled with shame and anger. She said coquettishly, "You." Before she could finish speaking, her hand was gently held by him. Mu Yaja lowered his head to look at her and asked, "Have you enjoyed yourself?" What? First date. Mu Yaja smiled and rubbed her hair. "It's already so late. Can we go back now?" Yun Shirshir originally wanted to nod, but when she thought that she would have to sleep after going back, she was a little unwilling, so she said, "Let's wait a little longer. It's still early." Mu Yaja glanced at her coldly. He reached out and handed her his watch. "What time is it now?" he asked with a frown. Yun Shirshir glanced at it and answered obediently, "It's 11 o'clock. It's already so late. I have to go back to the company." Thinking of the mountain of cases in the company, Mu Yaja felt a headache coming on. Upon hearing that he was going back to the company, the smile on Yun Shirshir's face suddenly froze. "Mu Yaja, can you not go to the company?" She needed him. She was already used to him. She was used to the sense of security in his arms when she opened her eyes every day. She was also used to the fresh fragrance of his hair on the pillow. She couldn't bear to part with him. Mu Yaja held her chin and pressed the tip of his nose against hers. "What? You can't bear to part with me? I want you to accompany me." Yun Shirshir stammered a few words. Mu Yaja looked at her and his eyes changed slightly. However, she wrapped her arms around his waist. "I want you to accompany me. Don't go to the company. Stay at home with me tonight, okay?" "Okay, let's go home." Mu Yaja smiled and pulled her wrist to the car parked by the roadside. "Be good. Go back and rest early." Chapter 965. The indulgence in his words made her feel a tinge of sweetness. Holding her hand like this, with such a tall man walking in front of her and holding her hand tightly, she didn't know why, but there was a trace of satisfaction in her heart that even she couldn't detect. That night, she pushed aside the company's affairs. He did not stay up late and slept with her early. In the dark, Yun Shirshir hugged his waist tightly and rested her head on his chest to listen to his strong heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. Just listening to his heartbeat made her feel at ease. Yun Shirshir could not help hugging him tighter. However, just as she was about to fall asleep, Lu Jingtian's mocking laughter rang in her mind again. "You're just a canary in his cage. He'll play with you when he's happy, but when he's tired of you, that's all there is to it. That's why I think you're quite pitiful. You see him as your whole world, but he only sees you as a plaything. Do you really think he cares about you that much? Her voice was so real and ear-piercing that it seemed to be ringing in her ears. Yun Shirshir was suddenly jolted awake by the words that suddenly flashed in her mind. Even though she was well aware that Lu Jingtian's words were only meant to provoke her, she still felt a little uneasy. Women were always insecure. In fact, she was also an extremely insecure person. Some were easily swayed by personal gains and losses. This was especially so when her man was such a high and mighty figure who could call the wind and summon the rain, a dragon among men. There were naturally many women who coveted him. Would he really be faithful to her though? Yun Shirshir raised her head and looked at the man. At this moment, in the dark, his eyes were closed. The darkness seemed to give him something even more charming. Exquisite facial features, deep brows, and handsome silhouette. Especially those long and narrow eyes. Even if his eyes were closed, they still exuded an insufferably arrogant aura of looking down on all living things. He was a man who was as arrogant as a god. Even though he was right by her side, she still felt that it was a little unreal. She suddenly leaned closer to him and planted a kiss on his thin lips. The taste of kissing him was so wonderful that she couldn't help but move her lips for a long time. She covered his warm lips with the tip of her tongue, and gently pried open the gap between his lips before sliding in. The man suddenly opened his eyes and cast a sidelong glance at her. Yun Shirshir immediately raised her head. Seeing that he had woken up, her face blushed and she shyly pursed her lips. You didn't sleep? She looked embarrassed and laughed dryly. This was the first time she took the initiative to kiss him, and he actually bumped into her. Thus, she felt a little embarrassed. In fact, he had already fallen asleep. However, he had always been a light sleeper and would wake up at the slightest movement. When he opened his eyes, she took the initiative to kiss him. For a moment, he was a little surprised. He had never seen her so proactive before. What? Aren't you going to continue? His voice was hoarse, revealing a hint of suppressed gloominess. With that, he flipped over and pressed her under his body. Using the incomplete kiss from before, he kissed her deeply on the lips. He suddenly sank into her. Only when they had enjoyed themselves to their heart's content did they stop. Before he fell asleep, he hugged her. The woman in his arms was already exhausted, and her body was unbelievably limp after their lovemaking. The two fell asleep in each other's arms. Chapter 966. Early in the morning, the sky was still slightly bright. Yun Shirshir was woken up by the movement beside her. By the time she woke up, Mu Yaja was already dressed in a suit and leather shoes. This man always recovered his energy at lightning speed. She was still so tired, but he was already full of energy. She was a little envious of him. Seeing that she had opened her eyes, he sat by the bed and gently caressed her cheek. Why are you awake? Sleep a little more. Yun Shirshir raised her hand and covered the back of his hand. Are you going to the office? Mu Yaja planted a kiss on her forehead. Yes. You continue sleeping. I'm leaving. With that, he got up and prepared to leave. Yun Shirshir suddenly sat up and called out to him. Mu Yaja. The man turned around. Ah. She bit her lower lip and suddenly asked, Will you be back today? Her face was filled with anticipation. Mu Yaja glanced at her and then said in a deep voice, I'll be back early. After saying that, he closed the door and left. Yun Shirshir lay back on the bed and closed her eyes for a while before getting up to prepare breakfast. She then personally sent the two little lads to school. In the afternoon, Yun Shirshir brought the two little lads home. The weather was hot, so Xiao Chen pestered Yu to go out to buy ice cream. Although Yu was unwilling, she could not resist his pestering and went out with him. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. Yun Shirshir felt strange. Did the two little guys forget to bring money? Thus, she hurriedly opened the door. Just as she opened the door, a familiar face came into view. Song Enya. She was startled to see Lu Jingtian standing beside her niece and an unfamiliar man beside her. Yun Shirshir, it turns out that Brother Mu is hiding you in his golden house and hiding you here. She then kicked the door wide open and walked in with Lu Jingtian. Yun Shirshir took a few steps back. Her face turned cold. These two people came in a menacing manner. Their faces were unfriendly. It was obvious that they were here for revenge. With a ferocious look in her eyes, Song Enya grabbed her arm the moment she walked in. Her grip was so strong that it almost left a red mark on her wrist. It was as if she could not wait to break her bones. Yun Shirshir struggled, but with a look from the Missy, Lu Jingtian stepped forward and grabbed her other arm. This time, Yun Shirshir was completely immobilized. Brother, come quickly. It's this B*Tsik. It's her. She hit me last time, and she hit Jingtian yesterday. She shamelessly seduced Brother Mu and bullied me. It's her. Come in and take a good look at this bitch's face. Song Enya called toward the door. Following that, Song Yunshi strode in. The tall figure stood in front of her and looked down at her with a frosty expression. Mu Yaja rushed home and gave Song Enya a slap. Yun Shirshir looked at the man in front of her. The man in front of her was tall and lean, but his aristocratic aura was there. One look and she could tell that he was rich and respectable. He exuded a neat and experienced aura. With just one look, she could tell that this man was from the military. He had a steel-like military aura. Song Yunshi was still young, but he was already a captain in the capital's military. He looked at Yun Shirshir and sized her up. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's beak. Are you the one who bullied my sister? His tone was arrogant and cold. Bully. Chapter 967. What are you doing? What do you think? Song Enya was the first to give her a tight slap. This slap was not careless at all. It directly slapped Yun Shirshir's face to the side, and a red handprint quickly appeared on her cheek. Yun Shirshir staggered a few steps backward. Her hair was disheveled from the slap, and she looked extremely disheveled. She covered her face, feeling a burning pain on it. She thought to herself, this Song Enya is probably relying on the fact that she has the advantage in numbers to be so overbearing. It's as if she can't wait to slap my face. Her ears, which had just recovered, immediately buzzed. What are you all doing? Yun Shirshir raised her head and shouted. Her eyes immediately emitted a cold glint as she glared fiercely at Song Enya. Lu Jingtian was immediately intimidated by her murderous glare. She did not know if she was pretending or not, but she pursed her lips and stomped her feet as she said to Song Yunshi, Brother Yunshi, look. This woman's eyes look as if she can't wait to skin us alive. She's so fierce. Song Yunshi glared at her and then said coldly, Enya Jingtian, don't be afraid. If this woman dares to do anything to you, I'm still here. Humph. This B*Tch. I'm afraid of dirtying my hands by slapping her. Lu Jingtian snorted. Even though she said that, she gathered all her strength and slapped her in the next second. Yun Shirshir sneered and said angrily, You guys are really capable. 3 people bullying 1 person? What is this? Are you bullying me with numbers? Song Enya was like a spoiled little princess at this moment, looking down at her condescendingly as if she were looking at a lowly commoner. What a fierce mouth. Yun Shirshir, let me tell you. No one has ever hit me in my life. You, on the other hand, are the first to hit me. Who do you think you are? How dare you try to bully me? Ha! You're just a commoner. Do you think you can do whatever you want just because Brother Mu dotes on you? Do you know who I am? How dare you hit me? Do you believe that I can chop off your cheap hand and no one will say anything? Yun Shirshir was so infuriated that she burst into laughter when she heard that. Song Enya was too arrogant. How dare she threaten to chop off her hand? Is there no law? Are you trying to use your power to oppress others in broad daylight? Law. Song Enya laughed as if she had just heard the funniest joke in the world. She then said coldly, Yun Shirshir, my words are the law now. If you obediently kowtow and apologize to me now, I can consider whether to let you go and not pursue this matter. Apologize? Kowtow? Yun Shirshir couldn't take it anymore. Her lips curled into a mocking smile. Why should I kowtow and apologize to you? What did I do wrong? Stubborn bitch. I think you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Don't think that you don't know how high the sky is and how deep the earth is just because Brother Mu dotes on you. Enya is from the Song family. Haven't you heard of the capital's Song family? Huh. Even if you're superficial and ignorant, you should know who the current mayor of the capital is. You've offended Enya. This isn't something that can be overturned with just a few words of apology. As she spoke, she pushed Yun Shirshir to the ground and started fighting with her. Chapter 968. The Songs? So what if they're from the Song family? Do they think they can trample and humiliate people's dignity just because they have a bit of family background? Yun Shirshir grabbed Lu Jingtian's hand and with a tug, pulled her to the ground. She then flipped her body over and pinned her on top of her, returning the slap she had given her earlier. Lu Jingtian struggled violently, and Song Enya pounced on Yun Shirshir to wrestle with her. When women fought, it was nothing more than pulling hair and slapping faces. Song Enya and Lu Jingtian used such despicable methods to the extreme. Lu Jingtian in particular, grabbed Yun Shirshir's hair and refused to let go. Song Enya gave Yun Shirshir a few more slaps. In the midst of the fight, Yun Shirshir's lips had a deep cut, and blood was seeping out. Yun Shirshir felt a metallic taste flowing into her mouth. When she noticed that the corner of her lips had been cut, a cold glint flashed across her eyes. Song Enya was so anxious that she did not pay attention to her strength and pinched and hit Yun Shirshir. At this moment, they had completely lost their usual elegant demeanor. They were ruthless and could not wait to tear Yun Shirshir's annoying face apart. For a moment, Lu Jingtian and Song Enya had the upper hand by working together. However, what was the saying? Even a rabbit would bite when cornered. For some reason, Yun Shirshir was forced to lose her rationality. She did not know where she got her strength from, but even Song Enya and Lu Jingtian could not hold her back. Seeing that the situation had gone out of control, Song Yunshi could only watch helplessly as Yun Shirshir slapped Song Enya's face. She could not stand it anymore. She stepped forward and pushed Lu Jingtian and Song Enya away. Then, she grabbed Yun Shirshir's hands with one hand and dragged her to the center of the living room. Yun Shirshir felt the pain of her wrist being dislocated. Then, she was thrown to the ground. Her back collided with the cold tiles, and the pain made her suck in a breath of cold air. Song Yunshi's anger rose from her heart. He had always doted on Enya as she grew up, and he had never once let her get hurt. His beloved sister was being bullied by this woman. For a moment, Song Yunshi couldn't care less about his so-called gentlemanly demeanor. He viciously grabbed her neck, his eyes bloodshot. "Brother! Hit her hard. Beat her to death." Song Enya covered her face, which was stinging from Yun Shirshir's slap earlier, and hooted with a ferocious look. At this moment, the footsteps of the two little munchkins could be heard from outside the door. Yun Tianyu saw that the door was wide open and immediately heard some discordant sounds. His heart skipped a beat and he quickly walked to the door. Just as he reached the living room, he saw Song Yunshi strangling Yun Shirshir. His eyes widened in shock, and the ice cream in his hand fell to the ground. "What's wrong?" Xiao Yichen, who was behind him, rushed into the living room. When he saw the heart-wrenching scene in front of him, anger surfaced on his face. In his anger, he crushed the ice cream cup in his hand. "What are you doing? Let go of my mommy." Xiao Yichen ran forward and kicked Song Yunshi's knee. This angry kick was equivalent to 80% of an adult's strength. Even Song Yunshi, who was well trained in the military, could not withstand it. She felt a sharp pain in her knee, and she staggered a few steps back before falling to the ground. This lad's strength is D*MN amazing. Chapter 969. Xiao Yichen spread his arms in front of Yun Shirshir to protect her. However, when he saw the intruders' faces clearly, he was shocked. It was actually Song Enya and Song Yunshi. Yu also ran forward in a panic. He walked to Yun Shirshir's side and squatted down. He saw that Yun Shirshir's hair was messy, her face was red and swollen, and the corner of her mouth was bleeding profusely. He was so shocked that his heart almost stopped at that moment. His heart ached so much that he almost suffocated. Tears gushed out in an instant as he called hoarsely, "Mommy!" Xiao Yichen turned his head and saw Yun Shirshir in a sorry state. His heart ached terribly. He looked at her body and saw that it was covered with grayish-black footprints. It was a tragic sight. Only God knew what had happened not long after they left. Song Enya was slightly surprised to see Xiao Yichen. When she saw Yun Tianyu behind him, who looked exactly like him, she was momentarily stunned. How? This child looked exactly like Xiao Yichen. Twins. Her first reaction was that Xiao Yichen and Yun Tianyu were twins. When she heard how close Yu and Yun Shirshir were, could it be that this child was secretly hidden by Yun Shirshir? Her thoughts quickly reorganized. She quickly came up with a conspiracy theory. Could it be that Yun Shirshir had given birth to twins as a surrogate for the Mu family back then and hid one of the children for her own selfish desires? She then used the child to rise in status because of her son. Was she trying to use the child to climb up the social ladder? No wonder. No wonder Brother Mu doted on this woman so much. Wasn't that all because of the child? Yun Shirshir was really a shrewd woman. She actually used the child to climb up the social ladder. Since ancient times, the status of a woman in a wealthy family rose because of her son. The same goes for the Mu family. Once she figured it out, the disdain and anger on Song Enya's face deepened. She pointed at Yun Shirshir and cursed, "B** Tisich, you're really shrewd. She's actually hiding the Mu family's heir, trying to use her son to rise in status and marry into a rich family. To think that you have such wild ambitions. Brother Mu must have been fooled by you." "Shut up," Xiao Yichen and Yu Yu said in unison. Song Yunxi stood up. When she looked up, she saw Xiao Yichen and Yu Yu standing in front of Yun Shirshir. She was also stunned. He had seen Xiao Yichen before, but who was the other child? Brother. Did you see that?" Song Enya tugged at her brother's arm and pointed at Yun Shirshir. "This woman is a surrogate for Brother Mu, but she's hiding one of the children. She's delusional to think that she can become a phoenix just because of her child. Yun Shirshir is really a scheming woman." Yu Yu calmed himself down and helped Yun Shirshir to sit on the sofa. When he turned his head, his face was frosty. His clear eyes, in particular, were emitting a blood-red murderous aura. His gloomy and powerful aura quickly spread to every corner of the living room. Lu Jingtian, who was standing at the side, felt an inexplicable chill and her shoulders shivered. Yu Yu clenched his fists and stared at them with his beautiful eyes. "Who are you?" Song Enya snorted. "Children shouldn't interfere in adult matters. This is my house. You're not allowed to mess around in my house." Yun Tianyu reminded her coldly in a domineering tone.